Hey, captive hearts. Get ready for a romance where fate and a deadly blizzard trap two destined mates together with nowhere to run. When pack enforcer Kane Mitchell is ordered to babysit the Alpha's rebellious daughter in a remote mountain cabin, he thinks it's just another assignment. But as the storm rages outside and the temperature drops, their shared body heat becomes a necessity, not a choice. Every breath mingles in the frozen air between them, every accidental touch sends fire through their veins, and the mate bond Luna has been running from for months grows stronger with each passing hour. They can't escape each other, or the primal need that's consuming them both. Will 3 days trapped in paradise break down the walls they've built, or will the danger hunting them destroy any chance at forever? Chapter 1. The first snowflake hit the windshield like a warning shot. Kane Mitchell gripped the steering wheel tighter as his truck climbed the winding mountain road, each turn taking him farther from civilization and deeper into what felt like a trap. The GPS had lost signal 20 minutes ago, leaving him to navigate by memory and instinct through the Colorado Rockies toward a cabin he'd only seen in photographs. "This is a mistake," he muttered, his deep voice cutting through the silence. The heater blasted warm air, but it couldn't chase away the chill settling in his bones, and it had nothing to do with the weather. In the passenger seat beside him, Luna Blackwood sat rigid as a statue, her dark hair falling like a curtain between them. She hadn't spoken since they'd left Denver 3 hours ago, but Kane could feel her anger radiating off her in waves. It mixed with something else, something that made his wolf pace restlessly beneath his skin. The scent of jasmine and defiance. His mate. The mate who'd been running from him for 8 months, ever since that night at the pack gathering when their eyes had met across the bonfire and the world had tilted on its axis. She'd felt it too. He'd seen the recognition flash in those storm-gray eyes before she'd turned and disappeared into the crowd. She'd been avoiding him ever since. Now, thanks to Alpha Blackwood's direct order, they were trapped together for the next 3 days. The weather report said light snow. Luna finally spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "This doesn't look light." Kane glanced at the windshield where fat flakes were now falling steadily, already starting to obscure the road ahead. His enhanced werewolf senses picked up the scent of a serious storm on the wind, the kind that could dump several feet in a matter of hours. "Mountain weather changes fast," he replied, keeping his tone neutral despite the way her voice sent heat spiraling through his chest. "We'll make it to the cabin before it gets bad." She turned to look at him for the first time since they'd started driving, and Kane's hands nearly slipped on the wheel. Even in the dim afternoon light, Luna Blackwood was breathtaking. High cheekbones, full lips that were pressed into a disapproving line, and those eyes, silver gray like storm clouds, currently flashing with irritation. "You know this is ridiculous, right?" she said. "I don't need a babysitter. I can take care of myself." Kane's jaw tightened. He tried to refuse the assignment when Alpha Blackwood had cornered him in his office yesterday morning. The Alpha's daughter had been receiving threatening letters for weeks, and with the pack spread thin dealing with territorial disputes, Blackwood wanted his most trusted enforcer watching Luna personally. The fact that Kane was Luna's mate, acknowledged or not, made him the perfect choice. And the worst possible one. "Tell that to the bastard who's been sending you love letters written in blood," Kane said grimly. Luna's defiance flickered, replaced by something that looked almost like fear before she turned back to stare out the window. "Those aren't love letters." "No," Kane agreed, his voice softening despite himself. "They're threats, which is why you're going to stay in that cabin and let me do my job." "Your job," she repeated, her tone bitter.
"Right.
"This has nothing to do with the mate bond you keep pretending doesn't exist." The words hit him like a physical blow. Kane's wolf surged toward the surface, demanding he pull over and claim what was his. Instead, he forced himself to focus on the increasingly treacherous road. "The mate bond has nothing to do with this," he lied smoothly. "I'm here because your father ordered it." Luna laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You're a terrible liar, Kane Mitchell." Before he could respond, the truck hit a patch of ice and skidded sideways. Kane's reflexes kicked in, his enhanced strength allowing him to wrestle the vehicle back under control, but not before Luna gasped and her hand shot out to grip his forearm. The contact sent electricity racing up his arm and straight to his chest. Luna must have felt it too because she yanked her hand back like she'd been burned, her breathing suddenly shallow. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the whisper of snow against glass and the low rumble of the engine. "Sorry," Luna whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. "Don't apologize." Kane's voice came out rougher than he'd intended. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine." But she didn't sound fine. She sounded shaken, and not just from the near accident. Kane wanted to reach for her, to pull her against his side and promise that he'd never let anything happen to her. Instead, he kept his hands on the wheel and his eyes on the road that was rapidly disappearing under a blanket of white. 20 minutes later, he spotted the turnoff to the cabin, barely visible through the snow that was now falling in thick, heavy sheets. The narrow driveway was already covered, and Kane had to engage four-wheel drive to make it up the steep incline without sliding backward. The cabin materialized out of the storm like something from a fairy tale. Built of dark logs with large windows and a wraparound porch, it should have looked welcoming. Instead, isolated as it was by the rapidly worsening weather and surrounded by towering pines heavy with snow, it looked like a place where people went to disappear. "Well," Luna said as Kane parked next to the front steps, "it's cozy." Kane studied the single-story structure and felt his chest tighten. One bedroom. He'd seen the floor plans. Alpha Blackwood had mentioned that particular detail when he'd given Kane the assignment. "It's secure," he said instead. "That's what matters." They sat in the truck for a moment, listening to the wind howl through the trees. The storm was getting worse by the minute, and Kane could already tell they wouldn't be leaving tomorrow as planned. Maybe not the day after that either. 3 days alone with his mate in a one-bedroom cabin. His wolf was practically purring with satisfaction while the human side of him wondered if this was some kind of cosmic joke. "We should get inside," Kane said finally. "Get settled before the power goes out." Luna nodded, reaching for the door handle. "The power's going to go out? In this kind of storm? Count on it." They grabbed their bags from the back of the truck and fought their way through the wind to the front porch. Kane found the key under the flower pot where Alpha Blackwood had said it would be, and they stumbled inside, shaking snow from their hair and clothes. The cabin was warm, heated by a massive stone fireplace that dominated one wall of the main room. Someone, probably the caretaker, had left a fire burning in the grate, and the flames cast dancing shadows across the rustic furniture and gleaming hardwood floors. It was intimate, romantic even. Kane cursed under his breath. "Oh," Luna breathed, setting down her bag and turning in a slow circle. "It's beautiful." Kane tried to see it through her eyes instead of through the lens of his own growing panic. The main room was open and airy, with the fireplace at one end and a kitchen at the other. A hallway led toward what he assumed was the bedroom and bathroom. Everything was decorated in warm earth tones, and the large windows that would normally offer stunning mountain views were now filled with swirling white. "Yeah," he managed. "Beautiful." Luna moved toward the fireplace, extending her hands toward the flames. The light played across her face, highlighting the elegant line of her throat and the way her lips parted slightly as she absorbed the heat. Kane's wolf whined with longing. "So," Luna said without turning around, "how exactly is this supposed to work? Are you planning to stand guard by the door for 3 days?" Kane set his own bag down with more force than necessary. "I'm planning to keep you safe. However that needs to happen. And if I want to go outside, take a walk, get some fresh air, then I go with you." Now she did turn, her gray eyes flashing. "I'm not a prisoner, Kane." "No," he agreed, moving closer despite every instinct telling him to keep his distance. "You're not. But someone wants to hurt you, and I won't let that happen. Not on my watch." "Your watch," she repeated, taking a step back.
"Right.
Because it's just a job." The word job hit him like a slap. Kane's control, already stretched thin by her proximity and the situation, snapped. "You think this is just a job?" he asked, stalking toward her. You think I'd volunteer to be trapped in a cabin with the woman who's been driving me insane for 8 months just because her father asked nicely? Luna's eyes widened as her back hit the stone mantelpiece. Kane, you want to know why I'm really here? Kane stopped just close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her skin, could smell that intoxicating jasmine scent that haunted his dreams. I'm here because the thought of someone else touching you, hurting you, makes my wolf want to tear apart everything in a 50-mile radius. I'm here because you're my mate, Luna, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Her breath caught. I never said I didn't acknowledge it. The admission hung between them like a live wire. Kane's heart hammered against his ribs as he searched her face, looking for any sign of the walls she'd built against him. Then why run, he asked quietly. Why avoid me for 8 months? Luna looked away, her hands fisting at her sides. Because I know what happened to my mother. The words were barely a whisper, but they hit Kane like a physical blow. Luna's mother had died when Luna was 16, killed by a rival pack targeting Alpha Blackwood's family. The mate bond had nearly destroyed Blackwood. For months, he'd been more animal than man, consumed by grief and rage. Luna, Kane started, but she was already shaking her head. I won't be that vulnerable, she said fiercely. I won't give anyone that kind of power over me. Before Kane could respond, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into the dancing shadows cast by the fireplace. Outside, the wind howled like something wild and hungry, rattling the windows and sending snow spiraling past the glass. They were alone, cut off from the outside world by the storm, with nothing but the fire between them and the darkness pressing in from all sides. Kane's wolf stirred, recognizing the primal intimacy of the moment.
Hunt. Claim. Protect.
Well, Luna said, her voice slightly breathless in the firelight, I guess we're really stuck now. Kane looked at his mate, beautiful, defiant, and scared, silhouetted against the flames, and felt something shift deep in his chest. The next 3 days were going to test every ounce of his control. But as another gust of wind shook the cabin and Luna shivered despite the warmth, Kane realized that maybe, just maybe, being trapped here wasn't entirely about keeping her safe from an external threat. Maybe it was about keeping them both safe from the storm raging between them. Yeah, he said quietly, never taking his eyes off her face. We're really stuck. Chapter 2. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the relentless howling of the wind outside. Luna remained frozen against the mantelpiece, her heart racing from Kane's proximity and the raw honesty in his voice. You're my mate, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. The words echoed in her mind, sending shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. She'd spent 8 months running from this moment, from him, and now here they were, trapped together with nowhere left to hide. I should find some candles, she said, pushing away from the fireplace and skirting around Kane's imposing frame. Or flashlights. Something for light. Kane stepped aside to let her pass, but the cabin was small enough that she still had to brush against his chest. The brief contact sent heat spiraling through her body, and she heard his sharp intake of breath. Kitchen cabinets, he said roughly. I'll check the bedroom for supplies. Luna nodded, grateful for the chance to put some distance between them. She fumbled through the kitchen drawers by firelight, her hands shaking slightly as she searched for anything useful. Behind her, she could hear Kane moving around, his heavy footsteps echoing through the cabin. The bedroom. The single bedroom with one bed that they were supposed to share for the next 3 days. Her wolf whimpered with longing at the thought. Found flashlights, Kane called out, his voice carrying a strange tension. And candles in the bathroom cabinet. Luna pulled out a handful of emergency candles from a kitchen drawer and turned to find Kane standing in the hallway, silhouetted against the flickering firelight. Even in the dim light, she could see the rigid set of his shoulders, the way his hands were clenched at his sides. What is it? She asked. Kane cleared his throat. The bedroom situation is complicated. Luna's stomach dropped. How complicated? There's only one bed. His voice was carefully neutral, but she caught the underlying tension. A big bed, but still just one. The couch might work, but it's not exactly built for someone my size. Luna looked at the couch in question, a rustic leather piece that would barely contain Kane's 6'3" frame. The alternative was sharing a bed with her mate, breathing in his scent all night, feeling the heat of his body just inches away. Her wolf practically purred at the idea. "The couch is fine," she said quickly. "I'll take the couch." "Like hell." Kane's response was immediate and sharp. "You're not sleeping on a couch while there's a perfectly good bed available. Then we'll share it." The words tumbled out before Luna could stop them, and she immediately felt heat flood her cheeks. "I mean, we're both adults. We can handle sleeping in the same bed without anything happening." Kane went very still. In the firelight, his eyes looked almost golden, and Luna realized his wolf was close to the surface. When he spoke, his voice was rougher, deeper. "Luna, I don't think you understand what you're asking." "I'm not asking for anything," she said, lifting her chin defiantly even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm stating a practical solution to a logistical problem." Kane let out a sound that was part laugh, part growl. "Practical. Right." He moved closer, and Luna caught his scent, pine and leather, and something uniquely male that made her knees weak. "Do you have any idea what it's like for me to be this close to you? To smell your scent, hear your heartbeat, and not be able to touch you?" Luna's breath caught. "Kane, 8 months," he continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more impact than a shout. 8 months of watching you from across the room at pack meetings. Of catching your scent on the wind and having to fight the urge to track you down. Of dreaming about you every damn night." Luna's wolf was responding to the raw need in his voice, urging her to step closer, to offer comfort. But the rational part of her mind, the part that remembered her father's broken howls the night her mother died, kept her frozen in place. "This is exactly why I stayed away," she whispered. "This intensity, this obsession. It's not healthy, Kane." "Obsession." Kane's eyes flashed. "Is that what you think this is?" "Isn't it?" Luna wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling exposed. The mate bond turns people into something they're not. Makes them desperate, possessive, willing to die for someone they barely know. "I know you." Kane's voice was quiet but certain. "I know you sneak out of pack meetings when they get too political. I know you volunteer at the animal shelter in town every Wednesday. I know you have nightmares about your mother's death and wake up crying." Luna's eyes widened. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I pay attention." Kane took another step closer, and Luna found herself backed against the kitchen counter. "I know you love storms except when you're stuck in one. I know you read romance novels and try to hide the covers. I know you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking, just like you're doing right now." Luna released her lip, which she had indeed been worrying between her teeth. "That doesn't mean you know me. Those are just observations." "Fine." Kane braced his hands on the counter on either side of her, effectively trapping her in place. But his touch remained gentle, non-threatening despite the intensity in his eyes. "Then let me get to know you. Really know you. We have 3 days, Luna. 3 days where you can't run away." The closeness was overwhelming. Luna could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the golden flecks in his dark eyes, could count the individual whiskers along his strong jaw. Her wolf was practically vibrating with need, urging her to lean into him, to finally give in to what they both wanted. Instead, she ducked under his arm and escaped to the other side of the kitchen island. "I need air," she said, moving toward the front door. "Luna, don't." Kane's voice held a note of warning. "The storm's getting worse." But Luna was already pulling on her coat and boots, desperate to escape the suffocating intimacy of the cabin. She yanked open the front door and stepped onto the porch, gasping as the frigid air hit her lungs. The world had transformed into something from another planet. Snow was falling so heavily she could barely see the truck parked just a few feet away. The wind whipped the flakes into spiraling dances, and the cold bit through her coat within seconds. But it was better than being trapped inside with Kane's magnetic presence pulling at her like a tide. "Jesus, Luna." Kane appeared behind her, grabbing her arm and pulling her back toward the door. "You'll freeze to death out here." I'm fine, she protested, even as her teeth began to chatter. You're not fine. You're running again. Kane turned her to face him, his hands warm on her shoulders. But there's nowhere to go this time. Luna looked up at him, snow catching in her eyelashes, and felt something crack inside her chest. He was right. She was running, had been running for 8 months, and for the first time there was nowhere left to go. I'm scared, she whispered, the words torn away by the wind almost as soon as she spoke them. Kane's expression softened. Of me? Of this? She gestured between them, her hand trembling with cold. Of what happens if I let myself feel it? Kane was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the swirling snow. Then, slowly, he reached up and brushed a snowflake from her cheek. The gentle touch sent warmth racing through her entire body. What happens if you don't? He asked quietly. Before Luna could answer, a tree branch cracked somewhere in the darkness, the sound sharp as a gunshot. Both of them tensed, Kane immediately moving to shield Luna with his body as his eyes scanned the tree line. Inside, he said, his voice taking on the authoritative tone of a pack enforcer.
Now.
They hurried back into the cabin, Kane securing the door behind them with more force than necessary. Luna stood dripping melted snow onto the hardwood floor, watching as Kane moved to the windows, peering out into the storm with predatory alertness. What was it? She asked. Probably just the wind, Kane said, but his posture remained tense. But we're not taking any chances. Luna nodded, suddenly very aware of how isolated they were. Miles from the nearest neighbor, cut off by the storm, with someone out there who wanted to hurt her. The threatening letters had been escalating in recent weeks, growing more specific, more violent. Her father had been right to send protection, even if that protection came in the form of her stubborn, persistent, devastatingly attractive mate. I'll light some candles, she said, needing something to do with her hands. I'll get the fire built up, Kane replied. It's going to be a long night. They worked in comfortable silence for the next hour, Kane feeding logs to the fire while Luna arranged candles throughout the main room. The flickering light cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an intimate atmosphere that made Luna hyper-aware of every sound Kane made, every movement. When they finally settled onto opposite ends of the couch with mugs of hot chocolate Luna had managed to make on the gas stove, the cabin felt like a cocoon wrapped around them, separate from the rest of the world. So, Kane said, cradling his mug in hands that looked capable of crushing it without effort, tell me about the letters. Luna's stomach tightened. She'd been dreading this conversation, hoping somehow they could avoid discussing the reason they were here. There's not much to tell. Someone's been sending me messages. What kind of messages? Luna stared into her hot chocolate, watching the tiny marshmallows dissolve. Love letters, I guess you could call them. Except they're written in what looks like blood, and they describe all the things he wants to do to me when he finds me. Kane's mug hit the coffee table with more force than necessary. How long has this been going on? 6 weeks. Maybe 7. Luna risked a glance at his face and immediately wished she hadn't. Kane's expression was murderous, his eyes glowing with barely contained fury. The first few were just weird, talking about how beautiful I was, how we were meant to be together. But they've been getting more graphic, more violent. Jesus. Kane scrubbed a hand over his face. Does your father have any idea who's sending them? He has the pack investigators looking into it, but so far nothing. No fingerprints, no DNA, no postmark patterns. Whoever it is knows how to stay hidden. Kane was quiet for a moment, his jaw working as he processed the information. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. Show me the letters. Kane, I don't think. Show me. His golden eyes locked onto hers, and Luna felt the full force of his protective instincts. I can't keep you safe if I don't know what we're dealing with. Luna set down her mug and moved to her bag, retrieving a manila folder she'd hoped never to open again. Her hands were trembling slightly as she handed it to Kane. I brought copies, she said. Dad has the originals. Kane opened the folder, and Luna watched his expression grow darker with each letter he read. His hands were white-knuckled by the time he reached the most recent one, and she could hear the low growl rumbling in his chest. "This bastard is obsessed," he said finally, closing the folder with carefully controlled movements. "These aren't just threats, Luna. This is someone who's been watching you, studying your routines." "I know." Luna's voice came out smaller than she'd intended. "That's why I haven't been fighting Dad's security measures lately." Kane looked up at her sharply. "What do you mean, lately?" Luna felt heat creep up her neck. "I may have ditched my bodyguards a few times in the past couple months." "You what?" Kane was on his feet in an instant, pacing in front of the fireplace like a caged wolf. "Luna, are you insane? Someone is stalking you, threatening to—" He broke off, running his hands through his hair. "Do you have any idea what could have happened?" "Nothing happened," Luna said defensively. "I was careful. Careful." Kane stopped pacing and fixed her with a stare that made her feel about 2 inches tall. "You were careful while ditching trained bodyguards to go off on your own with a psychopath, leaving you bloody love letters." When he put it like that, it did sound pretty stupid. "I needed space," she said weakly. "I felt like I was suffocating." Kane's expression softened slightly. "I get it. I do. But Luna, if something had happened to you—" He trailed off, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. The raw emotion in his voice made Luna's chest tighten. "Kane, I can't lose you." The words were barely a whisper, but they hit Luna like a physical blow. "I know you don't want the mate bond. I know you're scared, but I can't lose you. Not to some sick bastard who thinks he owns you." Luna stared at him across the flickering candlelight, seeing past the enforcer mask to the man beneath. The man who'd been watching her from afar for 8 months, respecting her space even as the mate bond pulled at him. The man who dropped everything to keep her safe, who was currently fighting every instinct he had to give her the room she claimed to need. "You won't lose me," she said quietly. Kane's eyes snapped to hers, hope flickering in their depths. "Does that mean?" "It means I'll stop ditching bodyguards," Luna clarified, but her voice was gentler than before. "It means I'll let you do your job." Kane nodded slowly, but she could see the disappointment he was trying to hide.
"Right. My job."
The silence stretched between them again, heavy with unspoken words and unfulfilled longing. Outside, the storm continued to rage, sealing them in their intimate cocoon. "We should probably get some sleep," Luna said eventually. "It's been a long day."
"Yeah."
Kane began collecting the empty mugs. "You take the bedroom. I'll set up out here." Luna watched him move around the cabin, blowing out candles and banking the fire for the night. His movements were economical, controlled, but she could see the tension in the line of his shoulders. "Kane," she called softly as he arranged pillows on the couch. "Thank you. For being here. For keeping me safe." Kane went still, his back to her. "It's what anyone would do." "No," Luna said, moving closer. "It's not. And we both know this isn't just about the job." Kane turned slowly, his eyes finding hers in the dim light. "Luna." "Good night, Kane," she whispered, then disappeared down the hallway before either of them could say something they might regret. But as Luna lay in the unfamiliar bed 20 minutes later, listening to Kane settle onto the too small couch in the next room, she couldn't shake the feeling that running away was becoming harder with each passing hour. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to wonder if it was time to stop running at all. Chapter 3. Luna woke to the sound of Kane cursing creatively in the kitchen. She lay still for a moment, disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before the events of yesterday came flooding back. The storm, the cabin, her mate sleeping on a couch that was definitely too small for his large frame. Pale gray light filtered through the bedroom windows, and she could hear the wind still howling outside, though it sounded less violent than it had the night before. She checked her phone, no signal, and it was already past 9 in the morning. She'd slept later than usual, probably exhausted from the emotional turmoil of the previous day. Another creative curse from the kitchen had her sitting up, concern overriding her lingering awkwardness about their situation. "Kane," she called out. "Everything okay?" "Fine," came his gruff reply, followed immediately by what sounded like something metallic hitting the floor. Luna slipped out of bed, grateful she'd packed flannel pajama pants and a long-sleeve shirt instead of the silk nightgown her wolf had been pushing for. She finger-combed her hair and padded barefoot down the hallway, following the increasingly colorful language emanating from the kitchen. She found Kane standing at the stove, glaring at what appeared to be a very stubborn coffee maker. His dark hair was mussed from sleep, and he was wearing only a pair of jeans that hung low on his hips. The firelight from last night had hidden just how impressive his physique was, broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, muscles clearly defined across his chest and arms, a tantalizing trail of dark hair disappearing below his waistband.
Luna's mouth went dry.
"The coffee maker hates me," Kane announced without turning around, apparently oblivious to the fact that she was standing there staring at him like he was a particularly delicious breakfast pastry. "Maybe because you're trying to intimidate it into submission," Luna managed, proud that her voice came out relatively steady. Kane glanced over his shoulder, and his eyes immediately traveled down her body before snapping back to her face. Luna became acutely aware that her flannel pajamas, while modest, still clung to her curves in ways that made heat pool low in her belly under his gaze. "I wasn't intimidating," Kane said, his voice rougher than it had been a moment before. "I was negotiating. With a coffee maker. It's a very unreasonable coffee maker." Luna laughed despite herself, the sound seeming to surprise them both. When was the last time she'd laughed around Kane? When was the last time she'd allowed herself to see the humor beneath his intensity? "Here," she said, moving to stand beside him at the counter. "Let me try." The kitchen was small enough that their shoulders brushed as she examined the coffee maker. Kane's skin was warm, and she caught his scent, that intoxicating mixture of pine and leather that made her wolf hum with contentment. "You're not putting enough water in the reservoir," she diagnosed, pointing to the clearly marked fill line. "And you need to make sure the filter basket is seated properly." Kane leaned closer to see what she was indicating, and Luna's breath caught as his chest pressed against her back. She could feel his heart beating, could sense the controlled strength in the way he held himself, so carefully still. "Like this?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear as he reached around her to adjust the filter. Luna's knees nearly buckled. "Why, yes. Exactly like that." For a moment, neither of them moved. Kane's arms were braced on either side of her against the counter, surrounding her with his heat and scent. Luna could feel the tension radiating from his body, the careful control he was exercising not to pull her closer. All she would have to do was lean back, just a little, and she'd be fully pressed against him. Her wolf was practically howling with need, urging her to give in to the desire that was making her skin feel too tight. Instead, she ducked under his arm and moved to the other side of the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she opened cabinet doors in search of something to do. "So," she said, her voice artificially bright. "How did you sleep?" Kane straightened slowly, his jaw tight.
"Great."
"Like a baby." A very large, uncomfortable baby crammed into a very small space. "You should have taken the bed," Luna said, pulling down plates even though they hadn't discussed breakfast yet. "I told you I was fine with the couch. And I told you that wasn't happening." Kane's tone brooked no argument. "I've slept in worse places." Luna turned to study his profile as he finally got the coffee maker working. There were shadows under his eyes that suggested he'd slept about as well as she had, which was to say, not at all. She'd spent most of the night listening to him toss and turn on the couch, hyper-aware of his presence, just one room away. "Military?" she asked. Kane nodded. "Marines. 2 tours in Afghanistan before I came back to the pack." Luna absorbed this information, adding it to the growing collection of details she was learning about the man she'd been avoiding for 8 months. "Is that where you learned to be so?" She searched for the right word. "Bossy," Kane suggested with a slight smile. "Protective," Luna corrected. "Though bossy works too." The coffee maker finally gurgled to life, filling the silence between them. Kane leaned against the counter, studying her with those golden eyes that seemed to see straight through all her defenses. "What about you?" he asked. "What did you want to be before your father decided you needed a pack enforcer following you around?" The question caught Luna off guard. Most people in the pack saw her only as Alpha Blackwood's daughter, the princess who needed protecting, the responsibility that came with her bloodline. No one ever asked what she wanted for herself. "I wanted to be a veterinarian," she said quietly. "I was actually in school for it when Mom died. Had to drop out to help Dad with pack business." Kane's expression softened. "You never went back?" Hard to justify spending 4 years in veterinary school when there are pack responsibilities. Luna shrugged, trying to appear casual about the dream she'd been forced to abandon. Besides, who has time for a career when you're constantly dodging bodyguards and stalkers? "That's not a life, Luna," Kane said seriously. "That's existing." The simple statement hit her harder than she'd expected. He was right. For the past few years, she'd been going through the motions, letting pack obligations and security concerns dictate every aspect of her world. When had she stopped fighting for what she wanted? "Well," she said, forcing lightness into her tone, "maybe after we catch my deranged admirer, I can think about going back to school. Assuming I survive 3 days trapped with you first." Kane's eyes darkened. "You'll survive. The question is whether I will." The loaded comment hung between them as the coffee maker finished its cycle. Luna busied herself searching through the refrigerator, grateful to find it well stocked with basics. "Eggs and bacon," she suggested. "I can cook." "You don't have to, Kane." Luna fixed him with a look. "You've been assigned to protect me, not wait on me hand and foot. Let me contribute something." Kane held up his hands in surrender, but she caught the small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Yes, ma'am." They worked together in the small kitchen, falling into a surprisingly comfortable rhythm. Kane poured coffee while Luna started breakfast, both of them carefully maintaining enough distance to avoid accidental touches. But Luna found herself hyper-aware of his every movement, the way his muscles flexed as he reached for mugs, the low rumble of his voice when he commented on the weather. "Storm's still pretty bad out there," Kane observed, looking out the window. "We're not going anywhere today." Luna followed his gaze to see a world completely transformed by snow. The trees were bent under the weight of it, and the wind was still whipping flakes around in dizzying spirals. The truck was completely buried, nothing but a vague mound in the driveway. "Dad's going to be worried," she said. "He knows we made it here safely. I checked in before the cell towers went down." Kane settled onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. "He also knows I'll keep you safe." Luna cracked eggs into the hot pan, trying not to think about what her father would say if he knew exactly how safe she felt with Kane. Or how unsafe her self-control was becoming. "Can I ask you something?" she said, not looking at him as she stirred the eggs. "Shoot. Why didn't you ever try to push the mate bond? Most wolves would have been more aggressive about claiming their mate." Kane was quiet for so long that Luna finally looked up to find him staring into his coffee mug like it held the secrets of the universe. "Because I saw what happened to your father when your mother died," he said finally. "I saw how the mate bond nearly destroyed him. And I realized that if you were going to choose me, it had to be because you wanted to, not because biology was forcing your hand." Luna's heart clenched. "So you just waited?" "I waited." Kane's golden eyes met hers. "I figured if it was meant to be, you'd come around eventually. And if not..." He shrugged, but she could see the pain he was trying to hide. "Then at least I'd know you were happy." Luna turned back to the stove, blinking away the sudden moisture in her eyes. How had she gotten Kane so wrong? All this time, she'd assumed he was just another dominant wolf who saw her as a prize to be won. She'd never realized he was giving her space not because he didn't want her, but because he wanted her to have a choice. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?"
For assuming the worst about you.
"For running away without giving you a chance to explain." She served the eggs onto plates, her hands steady despite the emotions churning in her chest. "For being a coward." "You're not a coward." Kane's voice was firm. "You're protecting yourself. There's a difference." Luna set his plate in front of him, their fingers brushing as he took it. The contact sent the familiar jolt of electricity up her arm, but this time, she didn't pull away immediately. "What if I don't want to protect myself anymore?" she asked softly. Kane went very still. "Luna, What if I'm tired of running? What if I want to see what happens when I stop fighting this? Kane's eyes were burning gold now, his wolf clearly responding to her words. You need to be sure. Because if we do this, if we explore the mate bond, there's no going back. I won't be able to pretend I don't feel it anymore. Luna looked at this man who'd waited 8 months for her to be ready, who'd respected her boundaries even when it clearly cost him, who was still giving her a choice even now when they were trapped together and the air between them was practically crackling with tension. I'm tired of pretending too, she whispered. Kane set down his fork, his full attention focused on her face. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should stop fighting this and see where it leads. Luna's heart was hammering so hard, she was sure he could hear it. I'm saying maybe being snowed in together isn't the worst thing that could happen. Kane stood slowly, moving around the island until he was standing in front of her. He reached out carefully, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. Are you sure? He asked, his thumb stroking across her cheekbones. Because once I kiss you, Luna, I'm not going to want to stop. Luna's breath caught at the raw honesty in his voice. Then don't stop. Kane's control finally snapped. He lowered his head and captured her lips with his, and Luna felt her entire world shift on its axis. The kiss was everything she'd been afraid it would be, consuming, desperate, perfect. Kane tasted like coffee and promises, and the way he held her face like she was something precious made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Damn, Kane whispered against her forehead. Yeah, Luna agreed shakily. Damn. Kane pulled back to look at her, his golden eyes searching her face. No regrets. Luna stood on her tiptoes and kissed him again, pouring 8 months of denied longing into the contact. When she pulled away, Kane's eyes were nearly black with desire. No regrets, she confirmed. But Kane? Yeah. Our breakfast is getting cold. Kane glanced at the forgotten food on the counter and then back at her, a slow smile spreading across his face. I can think of better ways to work up an appetite. Luna felt heat flood her cheeks even as her wolf purred with satisfaction. Is that a promise, Enforcer? Kane's smile turned predatory. That's a guarantee, Princess. And as the storm raged outside their little cocoon, Luna finally understood why she'd been running. It wasn't because she was afraid of the mate bond. It was because some part of her had always known that once she stopped fighting it, she'd never want anything else. Chapter 4. They never did finish breakfast. 20 minutes later, Luna found herself pressed against the kitchen counter with Kane's mouth trailing fire down her throat, their abandoned plates forgotten on the island behind them. Her hands fisted in his hair as he found that sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder, and she gasped his name like a prayer. God, Luna. Kane groaned against her skin. You smell incredible. You taste even better. Luna's response was cut off by a sharp crack from outside, followed by what sounded like a tree falling. They both froze, Kane immediately moving to shield her with his body as his head snapped toward the windows. What was that? Luna whispered, her heart racing for entirely different reasons now. Kane was already moving, grabbing a shirt from his bag and pulling it on as he approached the front window. His entire demeanor had shifted from passionate lover to deadly protector in the span of seconds. Probably just another tree coming down, he said, but Luna could hear the tension in his voice. The storm's putting a lot of stress on the forest. Luna wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling exposed in her thin pajamas. The spell of intimacy that had wrapped around them was broken, replaced by the stark reminder of why they were here. Kane, she started, but he held up a hand for silence. For a long moment, he stood perfectly still, his enhanced senses extended to their limits. Luna watched the rigid line of his shoulders, the way his hands had unconsciously curled into fists, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. It's nothing, Kane said finally, but he didn't move away from the window. Just the storm. Luna nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The safe cocoon of the cabin suddenly felt more fragile, their isolation more complete. Out there in the swirling white, someone wanted to hurt her. And the only thing standing between her and that threat was Kane. "Hey," Kane said softly, apparently reading her thoughts and her expression. He moved back to her, his hands gentle as they settled on her shoulders. "You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you." "I know," Luna said, and she realized she meant it. Despite everything, despite her months of running, her fears about the mate bond, her terror of being vulnerable, she trusted Kane completely. The realization should have scared her. Instead, it felt like coming home. "Do you?" Kane studied her face, his golden eyes serious. "Because I need you to understand something, Luna. What just happened between us, it doesn't change anything about why I'm here. I'm still going to keep you safe, whether you want me as your mate or not." Luna's heart clenched at the uncertainty she heard beneath his confident words. "Kane, I need you to know that," he continued, his hands tightening slightly on her shoulders. "I need you to know that I'm not protecting you because of the mate bond. I'm protecting you because you matter. Because the world is a better place with you in it." Luna stared up at this incredible man who somehow managed to be both fiercely protective and completely respectful of her choices, and felt something inside her chest crack wide open. "You really are nothing like I expected," she said softly. Kane's mouth quirked in a rueful smile. "Is that good or bad?" "It's terrifying," Luna admitted. "Because it makes me want things I swore I'd never want." "Like what?" Luna took a shaky breath, gathering her courage. "Like forever. Like partnership. Like someone who sees me as more than just Alpha Blackwood's daughter who needs protecting." Kane's eyes blazed. "Luna, you are so much more than that. You're brilliant and brave and stubborn as hell. You're compassionate and strong, and you make me want to be better than I am." "Don't," Luna whispered, her eyes filling with tears she couldn't explain. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because it makes me want to believe in fairy tales." Kane cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that had started to fall. "What if it's not a fairy tale? What if it's just real?" Before Luna could answer, her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, breaking the emotional tension with something almost comical. Kane's serious expression cracked, and Luna found herself laughing despite the tears. "Okay," she said, wiping her cheeks. "Maybe we should actually eat something before we have any more life-changing conversations." Kane grinned, the expression transforming his entire face. Practical and beautiful. "I'm a lucky wolf." They reheated their breakfast and settled at the small dining table by the window, the storm providing a dramatic backdrop to their meal. The conversation flowed easier now, the barriers between them starting to crumble. "Tell me about the military," Luna said, cutting into her eggs. "What made you join?" Kane was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "I needed to prove something to myself, I guess. I was young, angry about some things that had happened in the pack. I thought if I could be useful somewhere else, it would give me perspective." "Did it?"
"Yeah."
"It taught me that there are worse things than pack politics. It also taught me what really matters, protecting people who can't protect themselves." Luna studied his profile as he looked out at the storm. "Is that why you became an enforcer when you came back?" "Partly." Kane turned back to her. "But mostly because I realized I wanted to be the kind of man who could be trusted with what mattered most." The weight of his words settled between them. Luna understood that he wasn't just talking about his job, he was talking about her. About being worthy of a mate bond, of her trust. "What about you?"
Kane asked.
"What was veterinary school like before?" "Before my world imploded?"
Luna finished.
"It was everything I dreamed of. I love the science, the problem-solving, the fact that animals don't care about pack politics or bloodlines. To them, I was just someone who wanted to help." "You could still go back," Kane said seriously. "There's no reason you can't finish your degree." Luna shook her head. "It's been too long. Besides, the pack needs." "The pack needs a lot of things," Kane interrupted. "But what do you need, Luna? Not as the Alpha's daughter, not as a future pack leader. What does Luna need?" The question hung in the air between them. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time she'd even asked herself? "I don't know," she admitted quietly. I've been focused on survival for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to want things for myself. Kane reached across the table and covered her hand with his. Then, maybe we can figure it out together. Luna stared down at their joined hands, marveling at how right it felt. Kane's hand was warm and calloused, completely engulfing hers, but his touch was gentle, protective without being possessive. "This is crazy," she said, but she didn't pull away. "Yesterday, I was ready to fight you every step of the way, and now I'm wondering why I wasted 8 months running from the best thing that ever happened to me." Kane's grip on her hand tightened. "Luna." A sharp beeping sound cut through the moment, making them both jump. Kane was on his feet instantly, every muscle in his body tense as he scanned the cabin for the source of the noise. "What is that?" Luna asked, her heart racing. Kane followed the sound to a small device mounted near the front door, a security system Luna had noticed before. The little red light was blinking frantically, and Kane's face went grim as he examined the display. "Motion sensor," he said tersely. Something triggered the perimeter alarm. Luna's blood turned to ice. "Someone's out there?" "Maybe." Kane was already moving, pulling on boots and a heavy coat. "Could be an animal, or another tree falling. But I need to check." "You're not going out there alone," Luna said, standing up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Kane spun to face her, his expression fierce. "The hell I'm not. You're staying right here where it's safe." "Kane, what if it's him? What if whoever's been sending those letters followed us here? Then he'll have to go through me to get to you." Kane's voice was deadly calm, but Luna could see the wolf lurking just beneath the surface. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me." "How will I know it's you?" Kane paused in the act of checking what Luna now realized was a very serious-looking gun. "I'll knock 3 times, pause, then twice more. If anyone tries to get in without that signal, or if I'm not back in 20 minutes, there's a radio in the bedroom closet. Call for backup." Luna nodded, her throat tight with fear. Not for herself, for Kane, who was about to walk out into a blizzard to face an unknown threat. Kane must have seen something in her expression because he crossed back to her in 2 quick strides and pulled her into his arms. The kiss he gave her was hard, desperate, full of unspoken promises. "I'll be right back," he murmured against her lips. "I promise." And then he was gone, leaving Luna alone in the cabin with nothing but the howling wind and her racing heart for company. She locked the door with trembling fingers and moved to the window, trying to catch a glimpse of Kane through the swirling snow. But the storm had swallowed him completely, and all she could do was wait. The silence in the cabin was deafening. Every creak of the building, every gust of wind, made her jump. The motion sensor had gone quiet, but Luna couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That someone was out there watching, waiting. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Luna was just reaching for her phone to try to get a signal when she heard it. 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. Relief flooded through her as she rushed to unlock the door. Kane stumbled inside, his dark hair white with snow, his cheeks red from the cold. "False alarm," he said, stomping the snow off his boots. "Found what triggered the sensor. Branch fell across the motion detector. But I did a full perimeter sweep to be sure." Luna sagged against the wall, the adrenaline leaving her system in a rush. "I thought, when you were gone so long." Kane looked up at her, and something in her expression made him go very still. "Luna? What is it?" "I was terrified," she whispered. "Not for me.
For you."
The thought of something happening to you." She shook her head, unable to finish the sentence. Kane stepped closer, his golden eyes intense. "Nothing's going to happen to me. You don't know that. You can't promise that." Luna's voice cracked. "And I realized, sitting here waiting for you to come back, that I can't pretend anymore. I can't keep running from this." "From what?" Luna looked up at him, her heart in her throat. "From loving you." The words hung in the air between them like a confession and a surrender all at once. Kane went completely still, his eyes searching her face like he was afraid he'd misheard. "Luna, I love you," she said again, stronger this time. "I think I have for months, but I was too scared to admit it." Too scared of being that vulnerable, of giving someone that much power over me. But watching you walk out that door, knowing you might not come back." She took a shaky breath. "I realized that being without you is scarier than anything else could ever be." Kane closed the distance between them in one swift movement, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. When he set her down, his hands were framing her face, and his eyes were bright with an emotion that took her breath away. "I love you too," he said fiercely. "God, Luna, I've been in love with you since the moment I saw you. I was just waiting for you to be ready to hear it." Luna laughed, feeling giddy and terrified and completely alive all at once. "Well, I'm ready now. Are you sure?" Kane's voice was serious despite the joy in his eyes. "Because I need you to understand what you're signing up for. I'm not going anywhere, Luna. Ever. Through pack politics and stalkers, and whatever life throws at us. I'm yours. Completely." Luna stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, putting everything she felt into the contact. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I'm yours too," she whispered. "And Kane, yeah, I think I'm finally ready to stop being afraid of forever." Kane's answering smile was blinding.
"Good.
Because forever is exactly what I'm offering." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside their small cabin, Luna finally understood what it meant to come home. Chapter 5. The rest of the morning passed in a haze of stolen kisses and whispered confessions. They settled on the couch together, Luna curled against Kane's side as the storm continued its assault on the world outside. For the first time in months, Luna felt truly at peace. "Tell me something I don't know about you," she said, tracing lazy patterns on Kane's chest through his shirt. Kane's arm tightened around her. "Like what?" "Anything. Your favorite color, your biggest fear, what you wanted to be when you grew up before you decided to become a professional protector." Kane chuckled, the sound vibrating through his chest. "My favorite color is gray." "Gray?" Luna lifted her head to look at him. "That's the most boring answer possible." "Not just any gray," Kane said, his golden eyes warm with affection. "Storm gray. Like your eyes when you're angry or passionate about something. It's the most beautiful color in the world." Luna felt heat creep up her neck. "That's actually really romantic." "I have my moments." Kane's hand smoothed down her hair. "My biggest fear used to be that you'd never give us a chance. Now it's that I'll fail to protect you when you need me most." "And what did you want to be when you grew up?" Kane was quiet for so long that Luna thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "A teacher. Elementary school, probably. I like the idea of helping kids figure out who they wanted to become." Luna sat up, studying his face with new eyes. "Seriously? You sound surprised. I can't picture you with a classroom full of 6-year-olds.
Kane grinned.
"I'm good with kids. They don't care about pack hierarchy or politics. They just want someone who listens to them and makes them feel safe." Luna felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. The image of Kane surrounded by children, patient and protective and gentle, was doing things to her that she wasn't quite ready to examine. "What changed your mind?" she asked. Kane's expression grew more serious. "My father. He thought teaching was beneath an enforcer's son. Said I needed to focus on activities that would serve the pack, not waste time with human children." "I'm sorry," Luna said quietly. "That must have been hard." Kane shrugged, but she could see the old hurt in his eyes. "It taught me what kind of father I never want to be." The casual mention of future children made Luna's breath catch. They'd just confessed their love for each other a few hours ago, and here Kane was already thinking about their future together. The normal Luna would have panicked at the implication. But sitting here in his arms, feeling safe and cherished and completely understood, she found she wasn't scared at all. "What about you?"
Kane asked.
"What's something I don't know?" Luna considered the question, sifting through years of carefully guarded secrets. "I used to sneak out of the pack house when I was a teenager to volunteer at the human animal shelter in town." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Your father let you do that?" "My father didn't know. He would have had a heart attack if he'd found out his precious daughter was consorting with humans without security detail. Luna grinned at the memory. I told him I was going to study groups at friends' houses. How long did you get away with it? 2 years. Until Mrs. Henderson, the shelter director, figured out who I was and called the pack house to thank my father for raising such a compassionate daughter.
Kane winced.
I bet that went over well. He grounded me for 3 months and assigned me a permanent shadow. Luna's expression grew wistful. But those 2 years were the happiest of my teenage life. Working with the animals, being treated like a normal person instead of pack royalty, it was everything I'd dreamed of. Kane was studying her face with an intensity that made her squirm. That's why you wanted to be a vet.
Partly.
But also because animals don't lie, Kane. They don't manipulate or scheme or use you for political gain. They just are. And if you treat them with kindness, they love you unconditionally. Is that what you think people do? Use you? Luna considered the question honestly. Most of them, yeah. I'm Alpha Blackwood's daughter. I'm either a threat to be neutralized, an alliance to be secured, or a prize to be won. Very few people see me as just Luna. Kane was quiet for a moment, his hand stroking through her hair. Is that what you thought I was doing? Trying to win a prize? At first, Luna admitted. But you never pushed, never tried to use the mate bond to manipulate me. You just waited. Even when it must have been killing you. It was killing me, Kane said quietly. But I'd rather have you hate me than feel trapped by me. Luna shifted in his arms so she could see his face properly. I never hated you, Kane. I was scared of you, but I never hated you. Scared of me? Scared of how you made me feel. Scared of wanting something so much it could destroy me. Luna took a shaky breath. My mother loved my father with everything she had. When she died, he almost followed her. For months, he was more wolf than man, consumed by grief and rage. I watched the mate bond nearly tear him apart, and I swore I'd never let myself be that vulnerable. Kane's arms tightened around her. Luna. But here's the thing I'm finally starting to understand, she continued. My parents had 20 years together. 20 years of love and partnership and happiness. And yes, losing her almost destroyed him, but he's told me countless times that he'd rather have had those 20 years with her than a lifetime without her. Kane cupped her face in his hands, his golden eyes serious. I can't promise I'll never hurt you, Luna. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise I'll never leave you by choice. Whatever happens, we face it together. Luna leaned into his touch, feeling the last of her walls crumble. Together sounds perfect. Kane's response was to kiss her thoroughly, and Luna lost herself in the taste and feel of him. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I should probably check the perimeter again, Kane said reluctantly. Make sure everything's still secure. Luna nodded, though she hated the idea of him going back out into the storm. Be careful. Always am. Kane dropped a quick kiss on her forehead. Why don't you see if you can get the radio working? Try to reach your father, let him know we're okay. Luna watched him bundle up again, her heart clenching with worry she was still getting used to feeling. Loving someone, she realized, meant signing up for a lifetime of this, the constant low-level fear that something might happen to the person who mattered most. But as Kane paused at the door to give her one more reassuring smile, Luna decided it was worth it. He was worth it. She found the radio in the bedroom closet, exactly where Kane had said it would be. It took her several minutes to figure out the controls, but eventually she managed to raise someone at the pack house. Luna? Her father's voice crackled through the static, tight with worry. Thank God. Are you safe? I'm fine, Dad. Kane's taking good care of me. How's the weather? The meteorologists are saying it's the worst storm to hit the region in 50 years. Luna looked out the bedroom window at the wall of white beyond the glass. It's pretty bad. We're not going anywhere today, that's for sure. Good. Stay put until the roads are clear. Has there been any sign of trouble? Luna thought about the motion sensor alarm that morning, Kane's careful perimeter checks. Nothing concrete. Kane's being very thorough about security. Good man, that Kane. I knew I could trust him to keep you safe. There was something in her father's tone that made Luna frown. Dad? Is there something you're not telling me? Static filled the line for a moment before her father's voice came back, fainter now. The investigation into your stalker has uncovered some concerning information. We think he might be more dangerous than we originally believed. Luna's blood ran cold. What kind of concerning information? The letters you've been receiving aren't the first he sent. We found evidence of similar correspondence to 3 other she-wolves over the past 5 years. Luna, her father's voice was grim. 2 of those women are dead. The radio slipped from Luna's suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. She stood frozen in the bedroom, her father's words echoing in her mind. 2 of those women are dead. Luna? Luna, are you there? Her father's voice crackled from the dropped radio. She fumbled to pick it up, her hands shaking. I'm here. Dad. What happened to them? We're still piecing it together, but it looks like he escalated from letters to direct contact. The first woman was found in her apartment, the second in a remote cabin not unlike the one you're in now. Luna sank onto the bed, her legs suddenly unable to support her. How did he find them?
We don't know yet.
But Luna, listen to me very carefully. You need to be extra vigilant. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't open the door for anyone but Kane, and if anything seems off, you get on this radio immediately. Okay, Luna whispered. Dad? How do we know he doesn't know where we are? The static seemed to grow louder in the silence that followed her question. We don't, her father finally admitted. That's why Kane is there. He's one of the best we have, sweetheart. Trust him. The connection started to break up then, her father's voice fading in and out. Love you. Be careful. Check in tomorrow. And then there was nothing but static. Luna sat in the silence of the bedroom, her mind reeling. 2 women were dead. 2 women who had received the same kind of letters she'd been getting, who had probably felt the same mixture of fear and violation she'd been experiencing. A sound from the main room made her jump, Kane returning from his patrol. Luna took a deep breath, trying to compose herself before she had to tell him what she'd learned. But as she stood to go meet him, she heard something that made her blood freeze in her veins. Kane's voice, but different.
Strained.
And he wasn't alone. Luna, he called, and there was something wrong with the way he said her name. Luna, I need you to come out here. Slowly. Luna's heart hammered against her ribs as she moved toward the bedroom door. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to stay hidden, to climb out the bedroom window and run into the storm rather than face whatever was waiting for her in the main room. But Kane was out there. And if he was in trouble, Luna opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. What she saw when she reached the main room made her stomach drop into her toes. Kane was standing in the center of the room, his hands raised slightly, his entire body rigid with tension. And behind him, barely visible in the shadows by the front door, was a figure in a dark coat with a gun pointed directly at Kane's back. There she is, the figure said, and Luna recognized the voice from her nightmares, smooth, cultured, completely insane. My beautiful Luna. We meet at last. Chapter 6. Luna's world narrowed to the gun pointed at Kane's back and the man holding it. He was smaller than she'd expected, unremarkable in every way except for his eyes, pale blue and completely devoid of warmth or sanity. Don't move, the man said pleasantly, as if he were commenting on the weather. Your mate here was very accommodating, but I'd hate for things to get messy before we've had a chance to properly meet. Kane's golden eyes found hers across the room, and Luna could see the fury and frustration burning there. His jaw was tight, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring ready to snap. But with the gun trained on his spine, he couldn't risk making a move. Let him go, Luna said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I'm the one you want. The man smiled, and Luna felt ice slide down her spine. Oh, my dear Luna. You misunderstand the situation entirely. I don't want to let him go. You see, I've been watching you for months, learning about your little life, and I've come to realize that this enforcer is rather important to you. You don't know anything about me, Luna said, taking a small step forward. Don't I? The man's smile widened. I know you volunteer at the animal shelter every Wednesday. I know you read romance novels and hide the covers when you're in public. I know you sneak out of pack meetings when they get too political. I know you cry in your sleep sometimes, dreaming about your dead mother. Each word hit Luna like a physical blow. How long had he been watching her? How close had he been getting without anyone noticing? I know, the man continued conversationally, that you've been avoiding this particular wolf for 8 months, running from the mate bond like it was a disease. Imagine my surprise when I tracked you here only to find you've had a change of heart. Kane growled low in his throat, the sound more animal than human. If you hurt her, you'll what? The man pressed the gun harder against Kane's back. You're hardly in a position to make threats, Enforcer. In fact, I think it's time you understood exactly how powerless you are. Before Luna could react, the man struck Kane across the back of the head with the butt of the gun. Kane dropped to his knees, shaking his head as blood trickled down his neck. Stop. Luna lunged forward, but froze when the gun swung toward her. The man chided. Sudden movements make me nervous. And when I'm nervous, I tend to pull triggers. Luna's hands clenched into fists at her sides. What do you want? What I've always wanted, my darling.
You.
All of you. Your fear, your pain, your desperate love for this wolf who can't protect you. The man's eyes glittered with malice. Do you know what I did to the others? The ones who came before you. Don't, Kane warned, his voice rough from the blow to his head. Don't listen to him, Luna. But the man was already speaking, his voice taking on an almost hypnotic quality. Sarah was first. Beautiful little thing. Reminded me so much of you. She fought at the end, called for her mate as I. Shut up, Luna said fiercely. Just shut up. Oh, but the best part was watching her mate find her, the man continued, ignoring her completely. The way he howled when he realized he was too late. The way the bond broke him, turned him into a hollow shell of what he used to be. It was inspiring. Kane was struggling to his feet, his movements still slightly unsteady. Luna could see him calculating distances, looking for an opening, but the gun never wavered from its target. And then there was Michelle, the man said dreamily. She tried to run, made it almost to the road before I caught her. The fear in her eyes when she realized nobody was coming to save her, exquisite. You're sick, Luna spat. I'm practical, the man corrected. I understand something your precious pack doesn't, that the mate bond is a weakness. It makes strong wolves vulnerable, turns them into slaves to their emotions. I'm simply exploiting that weakness. For what purpose? Luna demanded. What do you gain from this? The man's expression shifted, becoming almost thoughtful. Chaos.
Pain.
The systematic destruction of everything your kind holds sacred. He shrugged. Some would call it revenge. Revenge for what? For existing. The man's pleasant mask slipped, revealing the madness beneath. For being born superior, while the rest of us are left to scramble for scraps. For having everything handed to you simply because you can shift into an animal. Luna felt understanding dawn with sickening clarity. You're human. Very good, the man said mockingly. Though I prefer to think of myself as evolution's correction. Someone has to show your kind that you're not as invincible as you think. Kane had managed to get back to his feet, though Luna could see the effort it cost him. Blood was still trickling from the wound on his head, and his movements were careful, controlled. You made a mistake coming here, Kane said quietly. This storm, this isolation, it doesn't trap us. It traps you. When the pack realizes what's happened. Oh, but they won't realize, the man interrupted cheerfully. You see, I've been very thorough in my planning. The motion sensors around this cabin? I disabled them hours ago. The radio in the bedroom?
Jammed.
And this delightful storm ensures that nobody will be coming to check on you, for at least another day. Luna's heart sank. He was right. They were completely cut off, at the mercy of a madman who had spent months planning this moment. But enough talking, the man continued. I think it's time we moved to the next phase of our evening together. Luna, my dear, I'm going to need you to tie up your mate. Like hell, Luna snarled. The man sighed and pointed the gun directly at Kane's head. I was hoping to keep him alive long enough to watch what I do to you, but if you'd prefer I kill him now. Wait, Luna said quickly.
Wait.
I'll do what you want. Luna, no, Kane said fiercely. Don't. I won't watch him kill you. Luna cut him off, her voice breaking. I can't. The man tossed her a bundle of rope that he must have brought with him. Hands behind his back. And make it tight. I'll be checking your work. Luna's hands were shaking as she took the rope. Kane caught her eyes as she moved behind him, and she saw him mouth a single word. Trust me. Luna nodded almost imperceptibly and began wrapping the rope around Kane's wrists. But as she worked, Kane did something that took her a moment to understand. He positioned his hands in a way that would give him slack in the bonds if he rotated his wrists. It was subtle, something the man couldn't see from his position, but it might give Kane the mobility he needed to break free. Very good, the man said when Luna finished. Now step away from him. Luna reluctantly moved back, her heart hammering as the man approached Kane to inspect her work. He tugged at the ropes, testing their tightness, but Kane's positioning held. The bonds looked secure, while actually giving him just enough room to maneuver. Excellent, the man said, straightening. Now, Luna, I think it's time you and I got properly acquainted. Don't touch her, Kane warned, his voice deadly. Oh, I'm going to do much more than touch her, the man said casually. I'm going to break her, piece by piece, while you watch. And when she's nothing but a shell of what she used to be, I'm going to let you live with the knowledge that you failed to protect her. Luna saw Kane's body tense, saw the moment he decided to make his move despite the impossible odds. But before he could act, Luna made a decision of her own. Actually, she said, taking a step toward the man, I have a better idea. The man raised an eyebrow. Oh, you want to break the mate bond? Show how weak it makes us. Luna took another step, her voice taking on a seductive quality that had both men staring at her in surprise. Then why don't you let me show you just how weak it's made me? Luna, Kane said warningly. What are you doing? I'm being practical, Luna said, echoing the man's earlier words. You're right, the mate bond is a weakness. It's made me desperate, willing to do anything to protect the man I love. She took another step toward their captor, noting how his attention was now completely focused on her. So here's my offer. Let Kane go, and I'll come with you willingly. No fighting, no running, no screaming for help. The man's eyes glittered with interest. And why would you do that? Because, Luna said, moving close enough now that she could smell the madness on him, I'd rather sacrifice myself than watch you torture him. That's what love does. It makes you willing to die for someone else. How touching, the man said, but Luna could see she had his full attention now. The gun was no longer pointed at Kane, instead hanging loosely at the man's side as he contemplated her offer. The only thing is, Luna continued, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, you made one crucial mistake in your planning. And what's that? The man asked, leaning closer. Luna smiled, and for the first time, it was her turn to look predatory. You assumed I was helpless. Before the man could react, Luna's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist, squeezing with strength that made his bones creak. Her eyes flashed silver as her wolf surged to the surface, and suddenly the frightened victim was gone, replaced by an alpha's daughter who had inherited her father's lethal instincts. The man cried out in pain and surprise, the gun clattering to the floor as Luna's grip threatened to shatter his wrist. But her moment of advantage was brief. He recovered quickly, using his free hand to strike her across the face with enough force to send her stumbling backward. Luna! Kane roared, and she heard the sound of rope snapping as he broke free of his bonds. But the man was already moving, diving for the fallen gun. His fingers closed around the grip just as Kane reached him, and for a moment the three of them were locked in a deadly tableau, Kane lunging forward, the man raising the weapon, and Luna scrambling to her feet with stars exploding behind her eyes. The gun fired with a sound like thunder, the muzzle flash illuminating the cabin in stark relief. Someone screamed. Luna thought it might have been her, And then Kane's weight was crashing into the man, driving them both to the floor in a tangle of limbs and fury. Luna watched in horror as they fought, unable to tell in the chaos who was winning. The man was smaller but desperate. Kane was stronger but potentially wounded. They rolled across the floor, each trying to gain control of the weapon, and Luna realized she had to do something before one of them ended up dead. She spotted Kane's hunting knife on the counter where he'd left it earlier and grabbed it, the weight of it solid and reassuring in her hand. By the time she turned back to the fight, Kane had managed to pin the man to the floor, his hands wrapped around the man's wrists as they struggled for control of the gun. "Luna," Kane grunted, "get back." But Luna was already moving, the knife raised and ready. "Kane, move." Kane rolled away just as Luna brought the knife down, not to kill but to pin the man's gun hand to the floor. The blade went through his palm and into the hardwood beneath, and his scream of pain and rage echoed through the cabin. The gun fell from his nerveless fingers, and Kane was on it in an instant, the weapon now trained on their would-be killer. For a moment, the only sound was their ragged breathing and the wind howling outside. The man writhed on the floor, his hand pinned by Luna's knife, his face contorted with pain and fury. "You bitch," he snarled, looking up at Luna with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've done. I'm not the only one. There are others and they'll..." Kane's boot connected with the man's jaw, cutting off his words and sending him into unconsciousness. "Luna," Kane said urgently, the gun still trained on their attacker. "Are you hurt?" Luna touched her cheek where the man had struck her, feeling the sting of what would probably be an impressive bruise. "I'm okay. You?" "I'm fine." Kane's eyes swept over her, checking for injuries. That was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. "Which part?" "All of it." Kane's voice was rough with emotion. "You could have been killed." Luna looked down at the unconscious man, at the knife protruding from his hand, at the gun that could have ended everything. "But I wasn't." "We weren't." Kane moved to her then, careful to keep the gun trained on their prisoner, but desperate to touch her, to reassure himself that she was really okay. When his free arm wrapped around her, Luna finally allowed herself to shake. "It's over," Kane murmured against her hair. "It's over and you're safe." But even as Luna melted into his embrace, she couldn't shake the man's words. "I'm not the only one. There are others." The immediate threat was neutralized, but something told her their ordeal was far from over. Chapter 7. The first thing they had to do was secure their prisoner. Kane found more rope in the cabin's supply closet while Luna carefully extracted her knife from the man's hand. Blood pooled on the hardwood floor, but she felt no sympathy for their attacker. He'd come here planning to torture and kill them. A wounded hand was the least of what he deserved. "He'll need medical attention," Luna said as Kane efficiently tied the unconscious man to one of the heavy wooden chairs. "That's a lot of blood." Kane glanced at the growing red stain on the floor and shrugged. "He'll live," which is more than he planned for us. Luna wrapped the man's injured hand in a kitchen towel, her movements clinical despite the tremor in her fingers. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, leaving her shaky and nauseated. "What do we do now?" "Now we wait for the storm to pass and get him to the authorities." Kane tested the knots one more time, then moved to the radio. "And we try to reach your father, let him know what happened." But the radio produced nothing but static. Whatever the man had done to jam their communications was apparently still working, leaving them isolated with their prisoner. "So we're stuck here until the road's clear," Luna said, sinking onto the couch. The full weight of what had just happened was hitting her. They'd almost died. If Kane hadn't positioned his hands to give himself slack in the ropes, if she hadn't thought to distract their attacker, if either of them had hesitated for even a second. "Hey." Kane was beside her instantly, pulling her into his arms. "We're okay. It's over." "Is it?" Luna looked toward their unconscious prisoner. "He said there were others, Kane. What if this is just the beginning?" Kane's jaw tightened. "Then we'll deal with them too. Together." Luna leaned into his warmth, drawing strength from his steady presence. "I can't believe he'd been watching me for so long. All those times I thought I was alone." "Don't think about it," Kane said fiercely. He can't hurt you now. But Luna couldn't stop thinking about it. All those ordinary moments, walking to her car, shopping for groceries, sitting in her apartment reading, and this madman had been somewhere in the shadows, watching, planning. The violation of privacy was almost as horrifying as the physical threat had been. "Luna," Kane said quietly, "look at me." She lifted her head to meet his golden eyes, seeing her own shaken emotions reflected there. "You are incredible in there," he said. "The way you kept your head, the way you turned the situation around. I've never seen anything like it." "I was terrified," Luna admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway." Kane cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs stroking across her cheekbones. "You saved us both." "We saved each other," Luna corrected. "That's what partners do, right?" Kane's smile was soft and full of love. "Right." A groan from their prisoner made them both tense. The man was stirring, his head lolling as consciousness returned. Kane immediately positioned himself between Luna and the chair, his hand resting on the gun tucked into his waistband. The man's pale eyes opened, immediately scanning the cabin before settling on them with a look of pure hatred. "Well," he said, his voice hoarse, "this is disappointing." "Sorry we didn't cooperate with your murder plans," Kane said dryly. The man tested his bonds, wincing as the movement aggravated his injured hand. "This changes nothing, you know. I was just the advanced scout." Luna felt ice settle in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "I mean," the man said with a cold smile, "that my colleagues will be very interested to learn what happened here." "Very interested indeed." "Colleagues?" Kane stepped closer, his voice taking on the dangerous edge Luna had heard during pack enforcement duties. "How many of you are there?" "Enough." The man's smile widened. "Did you really think I was working alone? One human against an entire pack of supernatural predators? Please. We're not stupid." "You're something," Kane growled. The man ignored him, his attention focused entirely on Luna. "You cost me my prize tonight, little wolf. But don't worry, there will be other opportunities. Other cabins. Other storms." "Like hell there will," Kane snarled, but the man just laughed. "You can't protect her forever, Enforcer. Eventually, you'll let your guard down. You'll get comfortable. And when you do..." The man's expression turned predatory. "We'll be waiting." Luna found her voice. "Who's we? What organization are you part of?" "Organization?" The man looked genuinely amused. "Oh, my dear, you give us far too much credit. We're not an organization, we're a movement. Humans who are tired of being considered the inferior species. Tired of pretending that creatures like you deserve to exist." "You're talking about genocide," Luna said, horrified. "I'm talking about evolution. Natural selection. The strong surviving while the weak are eliminated." The man's eyes glittered with fanaticism. "Your kind has had its time. Now it's ours." Kane's hand moved to his gun. "I should put a bullet in you right now." "You could," the man agreed pleasantly. "But that would make you exactly what we say you are, violent, dangerous predators who kill humans without hesitation. How do you think that would play in the media?" Luna felt understanding dawn with sickening clarity. "You want us to kill you. You want to be a martyr." "Very good," the man said approvingly. "My death here would be quite useful, actually. Poor innocent human murdered by savage wolves, it would advance our cause considerably." "Then, I guess you're going to be disappointed," Kane said. "Because you're going to live to stand trial for what you've done." The man shrugged. "Prison is a temporary inconvenience. My associates will ensure I don't stay there long." "Your associates?" Luna repeated. "How many others have you killed?" "Me personally? Only Sarah and Michelle. But there have been others. Many others. We've been building our case against your kind for years, documenting your violence, your inability to coexist peacefully with humans. By murdering innocent people," Kane said in disgust. "By exposing your true nature. Every time one of you retaliates against our actions, you prove our point. Every act of vengeance, every display of supernatural strength, every moment of lost control, it all goes into our files." Luna felt sick. You're using our grief against us. Our love for our mates. The mate bond is your greatest weakness, the man confirmed. It makes you predictable, manipulable, desperate. All we have to do is threaten one half of a mated pair, and the other becomes a weapon we can aim wherever we choose. That's enough, Kane said sharply. You're not getting any more information out of us. But the man wasn't done. Tell me, Luna, when you thought I was going to kill your mate, what were you willing to do? How far would you have gone to save him? Luna didn't answer, but they all knew the truth. She would have done anything. Killed anyone. Sacrificed anything. Exactly, the man said with satisfaction. That's the kind of liability your kind represents. Emotional time bombs waiting to explode. The world will be safer when you're all gone. Kane had heard enough. He moved to the kitchen and returned with a dish towel, which he proceeded to tie around the man's mouth as a gag. Much better, Kane said as their prisoner's rants were reduced to muffled sounds. Now we can think. Luna was pacing now, her mind racing. Kane, we have to warn the pack. If there are others like him out there, if they're targeting mated pairs. I know. Kane was already moving toward the radio again. There has to be a way to get through the jamming. But even as they worked to establish communication, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. How many other couples were out there right now, isolated and vulnerable? How many had already fallen victim to this twisted campaign? There, Kane said suddenly. I'm getting something. The radio crackled to life, her father's voice coming through the static. Can anyone hear this? We have reports of attacks on multiple pack families. If anyone can hear this transmission. Luna grabbed the microphone.
Dad,
it's Luna. Can you hear me? Luna? Thank God. Are you safe? We've had reports. We're okay. We caught our stalker, but he's part of something bigger. A group of humans targeting mated pairs. We know. We've had 3 attacks tonight alone. How many are we dealing with? Luna looked at their gagged prisoner, who was watching them with satisfied eyes despite his situation. We don't know, but they're organized, and they're not planning to stop. Get back here as soon as the roads are clear. We're calling an emergency pack meeting, reaching out to allied packs. This is bigger than just our territory. The connection started to fade again, the jamming apparently still partially effective. Dad, are you there? Static filled the air, and then silence. Luna set down the microphone with shaking hands. 3 attacks in one night. How many people are dead? Kane pulled her into his arms again. We'll find out when we get back. But Luna, this isn't your fault. Isn't it? Luna looked at their prisoner, who was still watching them with those cold, satisfied eyes. He came here for me. Those other couples died because people like him are targeting the mate bond specifically. No, Kane said firmly. Those couples died because sick bastards like him think murder is justified by their prejudices. None of this is on you. But Luna wasn't convinced. The mate bond that had brought her such happiness in the last day had also painted a target on her back, and on Kane's. How many others would suffer because fanatics saw their love as a weakness to exploit? Outside, the storm was finally beginning to weaken. The wind had died down to a whisper, and the snow was falling more gently now. Soon, the roads would be passable, and they could return to civilization. But Luna had the sinking feeling that the Real storm was just beginning. Kane, she said quietly, what if he's right? What if the mate bond does make us vulnerable? Kane turned her to face him, his golden eyes serious. The mate bond makes us stronger, Luna. It gives us something worth fighting for. That bastard and his colleagues, they're afraid of what we represent. They're afraid of love that's strong, of bonds that can't be broken. But what if the cost is too high? What if loving each other puts innocent people in danger? Kane cupped her face in his hands. Then we fight harder. We protect each other and everyone else who matters to us. But we don't let terrorists win by destroying what makes us human or what makes us worth saving. Luna leaned into his touch, drawing strength from his certainty. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens when we get back, no matter how bad this gets, we face it together. No more running. No more trying to protect each other by pushing each other away. Kane's smile was fierce and full of love. I promise. We're partners now, Luna. In everything. As dawn began to break over the snow-covered mountains, painting the world in soft gold and pink, Luna felt something settle in her chest. The immediate danger was over, but she had the feeling their real trials were just beginning. But she also knew, with absolute certainty, that they would face whatever came next together. And that made all the difference. Chapter 8. By noon, the storm had passed and the mountain roads were clear enough for travel. Kane loaded their unconscious prisoner into the back of his truck while Luna gathered their belongings, both of them anxious to return to civilization and find out the full extent of the night's attacks. The drive down the mountain was tense and silent. Their captive had regained consciousness an hour earlier, but Kane had administered a sedative they'd found in the cabin's first aid kit. The last thing they needed was him trying to cause an accident on the winding mountain roads. There, Luna said as they reached the valley floor, and her phone finally picked up a signal. I've got 3 bars. Her phone immediately began buzzing with missed calls and text messages. 27 missed calls from her father, 15 from her best friend Sarah, and dozens of text messages from pack members. Oh God, Luna whispered as she scrolled through the messages. Kane, it's worse than we thought. Kane's hands tightened on the steering wheel. How much worse? The Riverside pack lost 2 couples. The Mountain View pack lost 1. And there are reports of attacks on lone wolves in at least 6 other territories. Luna's voice was getting smaller with each revelation. 12 people are dead, Kane. 12. Kane's jaw was granite. Any survivors? A few. The Blackstone pack fought off their attackers, but 3 pack members were seriously injured. Luna looked up from her phone. It was coordinated, Kane. All the attacks happened within the same 4-hour window. Professional, Kane said grimly. Military precision. Luna's phone rang, her father's number flashing on the screen. She answered immediately.
Dad.
Luna, where are you? How close? About an hour out. We have our stalker in custody, but he's confirmed what we suspected. This is organized. How bad is it? Her father's voice was heavy with exhaustion and grief.
Bad.
We've got representatives from 7 packs converging on our territory for an emergency council. The attacks weren't random, sweetheart. They were intelligence-gathering missions. Luna felt ice in her veins. What do you mean? They weren't just trying to kill our people. They were studying our responses, our security protocols, our pack dynamics. Learning how we operate under stress. For what purpose? We're not sure yet. But Luna, there's something else. The FBI is involved now. Luna nearly dropped the phone. The FBI? 12 murders across 6 states in one night, all targeting a specific demographic group. It's officially a federal hate crime investigation now. Kane glanced at Luna, his expression grim. The involvement of federal law enforcement would complicate everything. The werewolf community had always policed itself, kept their supernatural nature hidden from human authorities. Now that secrecy was threatened. Dad, what does that mean for us? For the packs. It means we're walking a tightrope. We have to cooperate with the human authorities without revealing what we really are. And we have to find these bastards before they strike again. Do we have any leads? That's what we're hoping you can tell us. What did your captor reveal? Luna looked back at the unconscious man in the truck bed, visible through the rear window. He's part of a movement of humans who believe werewolves are a threat to humanity. They're using the mate bond as a weapon, targeting couples to provoke violent responses. To what end? To build a case for genocide, Dad. They want to eliminate our entire species. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for so long that Luna thought they'd lost the connection.
Dad.
I'm here. Jesus, Luna. How many of them are there?
He wouldn't say.
But the way he talked, it sounded like they have significant resources and organization. All right. Get back here as fast as you can. The council needs to hear this firsthand. The call ended, leaving Luna staring at her phone with a growing sense of dread. When she'd been fighting for her life in the cabin, the threat had felt personal, immediate. Now she was beginning to understand the true scope of what they were facing. "This is going to change everything," she said quietly. Kane nodded. "The question is whether we can adapt fast enough to survive it." They drove the rest of the way in contemplative silence, both lost in their own thoughts. The familiar landscape of their territory should have been comforting, but instead it felt exposed, vulnerable. How many other humans knew about werewolves? How long had they been planning this campaign of terror? The pack house came into view as they crested the final hill, and Luna's heart sank. The normally peaceful compound looked like a war zone. The cars filled the usually orderly parking area, many bearing license plates from neighboring states. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, something Luna had never seen in her lifetime. "Federal agents," Kane said, pointing to several black SUVs parked near the main entrance. "This is going to be interesting." They parked near the rear entrance, and Kane immediately called for a medical team to deal with their prisoner. Luna watched as pack members she'd known her entire life efficiently transferred the unconscious man to a secure holding area, their faces grim and professional. "Luna!" Her father's voice boomed across the courtyard, and she turned to see Alpha Blackwood striding toward them, his expression a mixture of relief and fury. "Thank God you're safe." Luna found herself enveloped in her father's powerful embrace, breathing in his familiar scent of pine and authority. For a moment, she felt like a child again, safe and protected in her father's arms. "I'm okay, Dad," she said, though her voice came out muffled against his chest. "We're both okay." Alpha Blackwood pulled back to examine her face, his eyes darkening as he took in the bruise on her cheek, where their attacker had struck her. "He hurt you." "It's nothing," Luna said quickly, recognizing the dangerous look in her father's eyes. "Kane protected me." Alpha Blackwood's gaze shifted to Kane, and Luna saw something pass between the two men, a moment of understanding, of mutual respect. "Thank you," Alpha Blackwood said simply, "for bringing her home safe." Kane nodded. "Always." "Dad," Luna interrupted, "we need to talk about what we learned. There are things the council needs to know." "I know. But first, there are some people you need to meet." Alpha Blackwood gestured toward the main house. "Agent Martinez from the FBI and representatives from the other affected packs. They're waiting in the conference room." Luna felt Kane's hand settle on the small of her back, a gesture of support and comfort. "Are we ready for this?" she asked quietly. "No," Kane replied honestly. "But we're going to do it anyway." The main house was bustling with activity. Luna recognized pack members from their own territory mixed with unfamiliar faces, representatives from other packs, she assumed. The atmosphere was tense, conversations conducted in low, urgent tones. Luna. Sarah Chun, Luna's best friend and the pack's head medic, appeared at her elbow. "Oh, thank God, when your father said you'd been attacked." Sarah's eyes widened as she took in Luna's bruised cheek. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" "I'm fine," Luna assured her, accepting Sarah's quick hug. "Just a bruise." "What about Kane? I heard he was injured." Luna glanced at Kane, who was talking quietly with another enforcer. The wound on his head had stopped bleeding, but she could see the exhaustion in the set of his shoulders. "He should probably be checked out," Luna said. "But you know how stubborn enforcers can be about medical attention." Sarah snorted. "Tell me about it. I'll corner him later." "Sarah," Luna said, lowering her voice, "how bad is it really?" "The attacks." Sarah's expression grew somber. "Bad, Luna. Really bad. The Riverside pack lost 2 mated pairs, the Hendersons and the Garcias. Both couples had young children." Luna felt sick. The children? Safe. Hidden by other pack members during the attacks. But traumatized. Sarah's voice was thick with emotion. "Luna, these bastards didn't just kill our people. They made sure the children would find the bodies." Luna's hands clenched into fists. "Psychological warfare." "Exactly. They want the surviving children to be afraid, to associate the mate bond with death and violence." Before Luna could respond, her father appeared at her side. "Luna, it's time. The council is ready for your report." Luna followed her father through the familiar halls of the pack house, Kane falling into step beside her. The conference room was packed with more people than Luna had ever seen in one place. Alphas from neighboring packs, senior enforcers, and in the center of it all, a woman in a crisp black suit who could only be Agent Martinez. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alpha Blackwood announced, "my daughter Luna and Enforcer Kane Mitchell, the survivors of last night's attack in Sector 7. All eyes turned to Luna, and she felt the weight of their expectations settle on her shoulders. These people were looking to her for answers, for hope, for some way to make sense of the senseless violence that had shattered their world. "That's a guarantee." Kane's response was to kiss her thoroughly, and Luna melted into him, grateful for this moment of peace in the storm of their new reality. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Bed," Kane said against her forehead. "We both need sleep." Luna nodded, though she doubted either of them would sleep well. Too much had happened, too many new threats were looming. But at least they would face the nightmares together. They dried off and climbed into Luna's bed, and she immediately curled into Kane's side, her head on his chest. His heartbeat was steady and strong beneath her ear, and for the first time in hours, she felt truly safe. "Kane," she said into the darkness. "Yeah. What happens now? I mean, really happens. Not the political responses or the security protocols. What happens to us?" Kane was quiet for so long that Luna thought he might have fallen asleep. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "I think we figure out how to build a life together in the middle of a war," he said. "I think we learn to be a team, not just in crisis, but in everything. And I think we prove that the mate bond isn't a weakness, it's the strongest thing we have." Luna felt tears prick her eyes. "I want that. All of it. Even the hard parts?" Luna thought about the families they'd learned about tonight. Couples torn apart by violence, children left orphaned, an entire community living in fear. The mate bond hadn't saved any of them, but it had also given meaning to their resistance, purpose to their sacrifice. "Especially the hard parts," she said firmly, "because that's when we'll need each other most." Kane's arms tightened around her. "I love you, Luna Blackwood. Whatever comes next, whatever this war brings, I love you." "I love you too," Luna whispered. "Forever." They were just beginning to drift off to sleep when Luna's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen and sat up immediately. "It's Agent Martinez," she told Kane. "At 2 a.m. Kane was instantly alert, reaching for his own phone. "Answer it." "Agent Martinez?" Luna said, accepting the call. "Ms. Blackwood, I'm sorry to wake you, but we have a situation. Your prisoner is awake, and he's asking to speak with you specifically." Luna felt ice settle in her stomach. "What do you mean, asking to speak with me?" "He says he has information about planned attacks, but he'll only share it with you. He claims you're the only one who will understand the scope of what's coming." Luna looked at Kane, seeing her own dread reflected in his eyes. "Did he say anything else?" "He did mention that time is running out. Ms. Blackwood, I don't like this any more than you do, but if he has information that could save lives." "We'll be there in 20 minutes, Luna said, already climbing out of bed. "Luna, I should mention, we've had to move him to a more secure facility. He's being held at the Federal Detention Center downtown." The call ended, and Luna stood in her bedroom, suddenly very aware that her world had shifted again. An hour ago, she'd been planning to sleep in her own bed, wrapped in Kane's arms. Now she was about to walk into a federal facility to face the man who'd tried to kill them both. "You don't have to do this," Kane said, reading her thoughts. "We can tell Martinez to find another way to get the information."
"No."
Luna pulled on clothes with quick, efficient movements. "If he really has information about other attacks, we can't ignore it. How many more people will die if we let our fear stop us from acting?" Kane was already getting dressed as well. "Then we do this together." "Kane, maybe you should. Together, Luna." His voice brooked no argument. "We're partners, remember? That means we face the scary stuff side by side." 25 minutes later, they were walking through the sterile corridors of the Federal Detention Center, flanked by Agent Martinez and 2 U.S. Marshals. Luna's hands were steady, but her heart was racing as they approached the interview room. He's shackled, and there will be guards present at all times, Agent Martinez assured them. But I want you to know, he's been asking for you by name for the past hour. This feels like a manipulation, but we can't ignore the possibility that he has genuine intelligence. Luna nodded, straightening her shoulders. I understand. The interview room was small and sterile, dominated by a metal table and 2 chairs. Their prisoner sat shackled to one of the chairs, his injured hand wrapped in clean bandages. When Luna and Kane entered, his pale eyes immediately fixed on Luna with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Luna, he said pleasantly, as if greeting an old friend. I was wondering when you'd come to see me. Agent Martinez says you have information, Luna said, keeping her voice steady. Start talking. The man smiled. Straight to business. I like that. Very well. Tomorrow night, there will be simultaneous attacks on 6-pack territories across 3 states. The targets have already been selected. The teams are in position. Luna felt her blood turn to ice. Which territories? Now, that would be telling, wouldn't it? The man leaned back in his chair, looking pleased with himself. Information has value, my dear. I'm willing to trade. Trade for what? Kane growled. Immunity, the man said simply. Full immunity from prosecution, witness protection, and safe passage out of the country. Agent Martinez stepped forward. That's not how this works. You don't get to bargain with people's lives. Don't I? The man's expression turned cold. By my count, there are approximately 300 people in those 6 territories. Men, women, children. All of them will be dead by this time tomorrow night unless you meet my terms. Luna felt rage building in her chest, hot and righteous. You're talking about genocide. I'm talking about evolution. The weak being replaced by the strong. The man's eyes glittered with fanaticism. Your kind has had thousands of years to prove you can coexist peacefully with humanity. Tomorrow night, we begin to correct that mistake. Kane's hands had clenched into fists, and Luna could sense his wolf pacing just beneath the surface. Where are they? Which territories? The man chided. Immunity first. I want the paperwork signed and witnessed before I say another word. Luna looked at Agent Martinez, seeing her own frustration reflected in the federal agent's eyes. They were trapped, damned if they gave in to terrorist demands, damned if they let hundreds of innocent people die. There has to be another way, Luna said. There is, the man said pleasantly. You could try to guess which territories we've targeted. You have, about 18 hours to figure it out. Of course, there are over 40-pack territories in the region, so the odds aren't exactly in your favor. Luna felt something snap inside her chest. Before anyone could stop her, she was across the room, her hands slamming down on the table as she leaned into the man's face. Listen to me, you psychopathic bastard, she snarled, her eyes flashing silver as her wolf surged to the surface. You want to see what we're really capable of? Keep playing games with innocent lives and find out. The man's smile widened. There she is. There's the monster I was waiting to see. Luna realized too late what he'd done. The interview room was equipped with cameras, and her display of supernatural strength and aggression had been recorded. Evidence of exactly the kind of dangerous, uncontrolled behavior he'd been claiming werewolves exhibited. Congratulations, the man said, settling back in his chair with satisfaction. You just proved my point beautifully. That footage will be very useful for our cause. Luna stepped back, her hands shaking with rage and frustration. Kane immediately moved to her side, his presence grounding her. You're not getting immunity, Agent Martinez said firmly. Find another way to help us, or live with the blood of 300 innocent people on your hands. The man shrugged. I'm not the one choosing to let them die. That's on you. As they left the interview room, Luna felt the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. How many people would die because she'd let her temper get the better of her? How many more would die if they couldn't find another way to get the information they needed? We'll find them, Kane said quietly as they walked back through the detention center. The territory's under threat. We'll figure it out. How? Luna asked. 40 territories, 18 hours. The math doesn't work. Then we change the math, Kane replied. We get every alpha, every enforcer, every pack member with tactical experience in one room. We analyze patterns, share intelligence, make educated guesses. Agent Martinez nodded. I can coordinate with federal resources, see if we can identify any unusual activity or communications patterns. Luna felt a spark of hope. A war room. We treat this like the military operation it is.
Exactly.
And Luna? Kane stopped walking and turned to face her. What happened in there, that wasn't your fault. He manipulated you into reacting, but that doesn't make you the monster he claims you are. Doesn't it? Luna looked back toward the interview room. I lost control, Kane. I let my emotions override my judgment. That's exactly what he said we would do. No, Kane said firmly. What you did was care about innocent people enough to get angry when someone threatened them. That's not a weakness, Luna. That's what makes you worth fighting for. As they drove back toward the pack house through the pre-dawn darkness, Luna tried to hold on to Kane's words. But she couldn't shake the image of the man's satisfied smile, or the knowledge that somewhere out there, 6-pack territories were about to become battlegrounds. The war had begun in earnest now, and Luna was beginning to understand that the greatest battles wouldn't be fought with claws and fangs, but with the choices they made about who they wanted to be in the face of unthinkable evil. She just prayed they would make the right ones in time.
Chapter 10.
The pack house's main conference room had been transformed into a command center. Maps covered every available wall surface, marked with colored pins indicating pack territories, recent attacks, and potential targets. Laptops hummed with activity as representatives from 15 different packs coordinated with federal agents, sharing intelligence and resources with an efficiency born of desperation. Luna stood at the center of it all, directing the organized chaos with a competence that surprised even her. Somewhere in the past 18 hours, she'd stopped being Alpha Blackwood's protected daughter and become a leader in her own right. The Riverside pack is secure, Sarah reported, hanging up her phone. Extra security in place. All families accounted for.
Good.
What about Mountain View? Luna asked, marking another territory off her list. Still trying to reach Alpha Reeves, said Marcus, one of her father's senior enforcers. Phone lines have been down for the past hour. Luna felt her stomach tighten. Natural outage or deliberate? Unknown. We're sending a reconnaissance team. Kane appeared at Luna's shoulder, close enough that she could feel his warmth, but not so close as to undermine her authority in front of the mixed group of pack members and federal agents. He'd been her silent partner all morning, supporting her decisions without overshadowing her leadership. Any luck with the communication intercepts? He asked Agent Martinez. The federal agent shook her head grimly. These people are smart. They're using encrypted channels, changing frequencies every few hours. We're tracking patterns, but it's like trying to nail down smoke. Luna studied the map, her mind racing. They'd been at this for 6 hours, systematically contacting every pack in the region, coordinating security measures, analyzing attack patterns. But with each passing hour, the weight of those 300 potential victims grew heavier. There has to be something we're missing, she muttered. Some pattern, some logic to their target selection. What if there isn't? Suggested Dr. Chen, Sarah's father and the pack's chief strategist. What if randomness is the point? Maximum psychological impact through unpredictability. No, Luna said, shaking her head. This group is too organized, too methodical. They chose those 6 territories for a reason. She moved to the map, tracing routes between the previous attack sites. Look at the locations from 2 nights ago. Riverside, Mountain View, Blackstone, Pine Ridge, Silver Creek, Moonhaven. What do they have in common? Kane joined her at the map, his golden eyes scanning the marked locations. Geographic spread. They're not clustered. They're distributed across a wide area.
Right.
Maximum coverage, minimum overlap of response teams. Luna grabbed a red marker and began drawing lines between the sites. But look at this. They're all within 100 miles of major highway intersections. Agent Martinez looked up from her laptop. Easy access for escape routes. Or for bringing in equipment, Luna said, her excitement growing. These aren't random strikes. They're strategic locations chosen for logistics as much as psychology. Sarah joined them at the map. So, if we apply that same logic to potential targets. Luna was already moving, grabbing a different colored marker. Packed territories within 100 miles of major highways, not already hit, with populations large enough to make the attack newsworthy. She began marking new locations, her movements quick and precise. Kane watched her work, seeing the brilliant tactical mind that pack politics had never allowed her to display. Cedar Falls, Luna said, circling a location. Ironwood Valley, Granite Peak, Willow Creek, Elkhorn Ridge, and... She paused, her marker hovering over the map. Oakboro. The silence in the room was deafening. Oakboro was the largest pack territory in the state, home to over 200 werewolves, including dozens of mated pairs with young children. Jesus, Agent Martinez whispered. If they hit Oakboro, it would be a massacre. Luna finished quietly. Her father's voice cut through the stunned silence. Marcus, get Alpha Richardson on the phone now. Full alert status. Immediate evacuation of all vulnerable families. As the room erupted into coordinated chaos, Luna felt Kane's hand settle on her shoulder. Good work, he said quietly. You may have just saved 300 lives. Luna looked at the circled territories on the map, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What if I'm wrong? What if I've just pulled security away from the real targets? Then we adapt, Kane said simply. But your logic is sound, Luna. This is our best chance. Agent Martinez was coordinating with her federal colleagues, her voice crisp and professional as she arranged tactical support for the identified territories. Luna watched the controlled chaos around her and felt something shift inside her chest. This was what she was meant to do. Not hide behind bodyguards or attend pack social functions, but stand at the center of the storm and help her people navigate through it. Luna. Her father appeared beside her, his expression proud and worried in equal measure. I need you to coordinate communications with the federal teams. You understand their tactical thinking better than anyone here. Luna nodded, accepting the responsibility. What about you? I'm leading the response team to Oakboro. If your analysis is correct, that's where they'll hit hardest. Luna felt her heart clench. Dad, maybe you should. This is what alphas do, sweetheart. We put ourselves between our people and danger. Alpha Blackwood's expression was gentle but determined. Besides, I'll have 50 of our best enforcers with me. These bastards picked the wrong pack to threaten. Kane stepped forward. I should be on that team. No, Alpha Blackwood said firmly. I need you here, protecting Luna and coordinating with Agent Martinez. The strategic overview is just as important as the tactical response. Luna saw Kane's jaw tighten, recognizing his desire to be in the thick of the action. But he also understood the logic. Someone needed to maintain command and control while the response teams were deployed. Yes, sir, Kane said finally. As the teams began to deploy, Luna found herself at the communications console, coordinating between federal agents, pack enforcers, and local law enforcement. The next few hours would determine whether her analysis had been correct, and whether they could save the lives hanging in the balance. Luna, Agent Martinez called out. We're getting reports of unusual activity near Cedar Falls. Surveillance teams have spotted vehicles matching descriptions from the previous attacks. Luna felt a surge of vindication mixed with terror. She'd been right, but that meant the attacks were imminent. How long until our teams reach Cedar Falls? She asked. 40 minutes by air. An hour by ground. Luna looked at the clock on the wall. It was just past 6 in the evening, prime time for maximum psychological impact. What about the other locations? Teams are en route to all 6 territories. But Luna... Agent Martinez's expression was grim. Even if we're right about the locations, we're spread thin. If they hit all 6 simultaneously, we do what we can, Luna said firmly. We save who we can. Kane moved to her side, his presence steadying her as reports began flooding in from the deployed teams. Luna coordinated responses, relayed intelligence, and tried to ignore the growing knot of anxiety in her stomach. At 7:15, the first attack began. Shots fired at Cedar Falls. Came the crackling voice over the radio. Multiple hostiles, automatic weapons. We're engaging. Luna's hands flew over the communications equipment, coordinating backup and medical support. How many hostiles? At least 6. They're using the families as shields, trying to force our people into close combat. Luna felt sick. It was exactly what their prisoner had described, using the mate bond as a weapon, forcing werewolves to choose between tactical advantage and protecting their loved ones. Ironwood Valley under attack. Came another report. Same pattern. Hostiles have taken control of the community center where families were sheltering. One by one, the reports came in. Willow Creek, Granite Peak, Elkhorn Ridge. Each attack following the same brutal playbook: take hostages, force the werewolves into impossible choices, create maximum psychological trauma. But the largest force had indeed targeted Oakboro, just as Luna had predicted. The radio crackled with her father's voice as he coordinated the defense. Multiple teams, coordinated assault on the main settlement. They're using military tactics, Luna. Professional soldiers. Luna's blood ran cold. Dad, get out of there. Fall back and wait for federal support. Negative. Too many civilians at risk. We're moving to defensive positions around the family shelter. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Luna's life. Reports flooded in from all 6 locations: gunfire, explosions, casualties on both sides. Luna coordinated medical evacuations, tactical support, and federal reinforcements while fighting her own growing panic. Kane never left her side, his calm presence keeping her grounded as the crisis unfolded around them. When her hands shook as she relayed coordinates, he steadied them. When her voice threatened to break, he spoke for her. Finally, at 8:43, the breakthrough came. Cedar Falls secure, Agent Martinez announced. Hostiles neutralized, families safe. One by one, the other sites reported similar successes. The attacks had been stopped, the hostiles killed or captured, the families protected. All except Oakboro. The radio had gone silent 20 minutes ago, and Luna's attempts to raise her father had met with nothing but static. "We need to go there," Luna said, standing up so quickly her chair toppled backward. "Something's wrong." Kane caught her arm. "Luna, wait. The federal teams are en route." "My father is in there." Luna's voice cracked with emotion. "My pack, my people. I can't just sit here and wait." Before Kane could respond, the radio crackled to life with her father's voice, weak but unmistakably alive. "Command, this is Alpha Blackwood. Oakboro is secure. Repeat, Oakboro is secure." Luna sank back into her chair, relief making her legs weak. "Dad, are you hurt?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Bruised and tired, but fine. We've got 14 wounded, but no fatalities. The bastards didn't expect us to be ready for them." As reports continued to flow in from all 6 locations, Luna began to grasp the scope of what they'd accomplished. Her analysis had been correct. They'd identified the targets, deployed resources effectively, and saved hundreds of lives.
But the cost had been high.
17 pack members wounded, 6 of the attackers dead, 3 in federal custody. And somewhere out there, the organization behind the attacks was still operational, still planning. "This isn't over," Agent Martinez said quietly, echoing Luna's thoughts. "This was a major operation, but it won't be their last." Luna nodded, understanding that they'd won a battle, but not the war. "Then we better get ready for the next one." Kane's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Together?" Luna looked around the command center, at the faces of people who'd looked to her for leadership and found it. At Kane, whose steady support had kept her grounded through the worst crisis of her life. At the evidence of what they could accomplish when they worked as a unified force. "Together," she confirmed. Outside, the sun was setting on a day that had changed everything. The werewolf community had faced its greatest threat and emerged victorious through unity, intelligence, and sheer determination. But Luna knew this was only the beginning. The real test would be what they built from here, how they transformed this crisis into an opportunity to become something stronger, more united, more worthy of the bonds that connected them all. As the last reports filtered in and the immediate crisis passed, Luna felt Kane's arms wrap around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he murmured in her ear. "You were incredible today." Luna leaned back against his chest, drawing strength from his presence. "We were incredible. All of us. What happens now?" Luna looked at the maps on the wall, marked with battle sites and victory points, and felt a sense of purpose settle over her like armor. "Now we prepare for whatever comes next," she said. "And we make sure they never catch us unprepared again." Chapter 11. 3 weeks later, Luna stood in the morning sunlight streaming through the windows of her new office in the pack house. The space had been converted from a storage room into the headquarters for the newly formed Interpack Security Council, a joint task force coordinating threat assessment and response across 17 territories. Maps still covered the walls, but now they showed communication networks and resource allocation rather than battle sites. The crisis had passed, but the work it had spawned continued. "The Riverside Pack is reporting unusual vehicle activity near their northern border," Sarah said, entering the office with a stack of reports. "Probably nothing, but they're checking it out." Luna marked the location on her tracking board. Even 3 weeks later, everyone was still on edge, jumping at shadows. But the vigilance was necessary. The federal investigation had revealed that the organization behind the attacks was larger and more well-funded than anyone had initially suspected. "Any word from Agent Martinez about the interrogations?" Luna asked. "2 more arrests yesterday in Phoenix. And Kane called. He'll be back from Denver tonight." Luna felt the familiar flutter in her chest at the mention of Kane's name. He'd been traveling between pack territories for the past week, helping to establish security protocols and train response teams. The separation had been difficult, but necessary for the larger mission they'd both committed to. How did the Denver meeting go? According to Kane, the Mountain States Coalition is officially joining the security network. That brings us up to 23 participating packs. Luna nodded with satisfaction. In the aftermath of the attacks, the werewolf community had undergone a fundamental transformation. Ancient rivalries and territorial disputes had been set aside in favor of unprecedented cooperation. It was exactly what she'd hoped for when she'd first proposed the unified response. "Luna?" Sarah's voice was carefully casual. "There's something else. Your father wants to see you in his office." Luna looked up from her reports, noting her friend's expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, exactly. But, well, you should probably go see him." 15 minutes later, Luna knocked on her father's office door, her mind racing through possible crises that might require her attention. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of activity, and she'd learned to expect the unexpected. "Come in," her father called. Luna entered to find Alpha Blackwood behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. Kane sat in one of the visitor chairs, and something about his posture made Luna's heart skip a beat. "Kane? I thought you weren't getting back until tonight." Kane stood and turned to face her, and Luna saw something in his golden eyes that made her breath catch. He looked nervous, more nervous than she'd seen him even during the crisis 3 weeks ago. "Change of plans," he said, his voice slightly rough. "There was something I needed to do here." Luna looked between Kane and her father, seeing something pass between the two men. "Okay, now I'm officially confused. What's going on?" Alpha Blackwood cleared his throat. "Kane asked to speak with me privately when he returned from Denver."
About you.
Luna felt heat creep up her neck. "About me?" "Luna," Kane said, and she heard the slight tremor in his voice. "These past 3 weeks have shown me something I already knew, but needed to understand completely." "What's that?" Kane moved closer, his eyes never leaving her face. "That you're not just my mate. You're my partner in every sense of the word. You're the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I've ever known, and I can't imagine facing another day without you by my side." Luna's heart was hammering so hard, she was sure both men could hear it. "Kane, I know we've only been together for a short time," Kane continued, "but we've been through more in these past few weeks than most couples face in a lifetime. And through all of it, the danger, the crisis, the pressure, we've only gotten stronger." Kane dropped to one knee, and Luna's world tilted on its axis. "I asked your father for his blessing," Kane said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Because tradition matters and because family matters. But Luna, the only permission I really need is yours." Luna stared down at him, her strong, protective, wonderful mate, offering her everything she'd spent years being afraid to want. "Luna Blackwood," Kane said, opening the box to reveal a stunning ring, a princess-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the afternoon light and threw it back in brilliant sparkles. "Will you marry me?" Luna felt tears streaming down her cheeks before she even realized she was crying. 3 weeks ago, she'd been running from the mate bond, terrified of the vulnerability it represented. Now, faced with Kane's hopeful, nervous expression and her father's proud smile, she understood that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the courage to open yourself completely to another person. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, of course, yes." Kane's face lit up with pure joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and Luna realized he must have gotten her size from her jewelry box sometime in the past few weeks. "It's beautiful," she breathed, admiring the way the diamonds caught the light. "It belonged to my grandmother," Kane said, standing and pulling her into his arms. "She always said it should go to a woman strong enough to stand beside her mate, not behind him." Luna laughed through her tears. "She sounds like she would have liked what I've become." "She would have loved you," Kane confirmed, kissing her softly. Alpha Blackwood cleared his throat, reminding them they weren't alone. "Well," he said, his voice gruff with emotion, "I suppose I should officially welcome you to the family, Kane." Kane turned to shake her father's hand, but Alpha Blackwood pulled him into a brief, masculine hug instead. "Take care of her," Alpha Blackwood said quietly. "Always," Kane replied. "And Kane?" Alpha Blackwood's tone took on the edge of paternal authority. "If you hurt her, I'll tear you apart with my bare hands." Kane grinned. "Understood, sir." Luna rolled her eyes at the masculine posturing, but her heart was so full she thought it might burst. "Are you two finished with your testosterone display? Because I'd like to enjoy my engagement for 5 minutes before you start planning my wedding." Both men laughed, and Luna felt the last piece of her new life click into place. This was her family now, Kane, her father, the pack that had watched her grow from a frightened girl into a woman capable of leading them through crisis. "Actually," Alpha Blackwood said, "there is something else we need to discuss. About your role in the pack going forward." Luna felt a flutter of anxiety. "What do you mean?" "I mean that the past 3 weeks have shown everyone, including me, that you're a natural leader, Luna. The Security Council was your idea, your implementation, your vision. You've been running point on the most important initiative in pack history. I've been helping coordinate. You've been leading," her father interrupted firmly, "and doing it better than I could have. Which brings me to my proposal." Alpha Blackwood moved to stand behind his desk, his expression formal. "I want to create a new position in the pack hierarchy. Deputy Alpha, responsible for security, interpack relations, and crisis management. I want you to take it." Luna stared at him, speechless. Deputy Alpha was a position that had never existed before, a formal recognition of leadership that would put her second only to her father in the pack hierarchy. "Dad, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Kane said quietly. "You've earned it, Luna. Everyone can see it." Luna looked between the two most important men in her life, seeing their confidence in her reflected in their faces. 3 weeks ago, she'd been the protected daughter who needed constant security. Now they were offering her a role that would make her one of the most powerful wolves in the region. "What about the mate bond?" she asked. "Won't people think Kane is influencing my decisions?" Kane's expression grew serious. "Anyone who's worked with you these past few weeks knows better than that. You don't take orders from anyone, Luna, not even me." Alpha Blackwood nodded. "The mate bond doesn't make you weak, sweetheart. If anything, it makes you stronger. Having a partner you trust absolutely, who supports your decisions and watches your back, that's an advantage, not a liability." Luna felt the truth of his words settle in her chest. The mate bond hadn't made her vulnerable, it had made her brave enough to step into her own power. "All right," she said finally. I accept. But I have conditions. Her father raised an eyebrow. Such as? Kane gets an official position too. Head of Interpack Security, answering directly to me. We work as a team or we don't work at all. Kane started to protest. Luna, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Luna turned to face him fully. You said we were partners in everything. This is what that looks like. We share the responsibility, the authority, and the risks. Kane's smile was slow and full of love. Partners in everything. Agreed, Alpha Blackwood said. Though I should warn you both, this job comes with a target painted on your backs. The organization behind the attacks is still out there, and they won't appreciate what you've built. Luna felt Kane's hand settle on her back, warm and reassuring. Let them come. We'll be ready. Together, Kane added. Luna looked around her father's office, at the maps on the walls and the reports on his desk, at the evidence of the life she was choosing. It wasn't the safe, protected existence she'd once thought she wanted. It was dangerous, challenging, full of impossible decisions and life-or-death consequences. It was perfect. So, she said, grinning at both men, when do we start planning this wedding? Because I have a security council to run, a terrorist organization to track down, and a mate to marry. My schedule's getting pretty full. Kane laughed and spun her around, her engagement ring catching the afternoon sunlight and throwing rainbow sparkles across the walls. Outside, Luna could hear the sounds of pack life continuing, children playing, adults working, families living the ordinary, extraordinary lives she and Kane had fought to protect. 3 weeks ago, she'd been running from the mate bond, afraid of what it might cost her. Now she understood that it hadn't cost her anything, it had given her everything. Purpose, partnership, and the courage to become the woman she was meant to be. As Kane set her down and kissed her again, Luna felt the last of her walls crumble completely. She was done running, done hiding, done being afraid of her own strength. She was Luna Blackwood, Deputy Alpha, head of the Interpack Security Council, and mate to the most incredible man she'd ever known. And she was just getting started. Chapter 12. Luna stood at the edge of the forest clearing where she and Kane had chosen to hold their mating ceremony, watching the sun set behind the mountains that had once been a prison and were now a sanctuary. The same peaks that had trapped them together during that fateful storm now overlooked the beginning of their forever. Second thoughts? Sarah asked, appearing beside her in a swirl of ivory silk. As Luna's maid of honor, she'd been hovering protectively all day, making sure every detail was perfect. None, Luna replied, her voice steady despite the butterflies dancing in her stomach. You? About your choice in mates?
Never.
About this dress you insisted I wear? Multiple. Sarah tugged at the flowing fabric with a grimace. I look like a wedding cake. Luna laughed, the sound carrying across the clearing where pack members from 17 territories were gathering for the ceremony. It was the largest interpack gathering in recorded history, a symbol of the unity that had grown from the ashes of the attacks 6 months ago. You look beautiful, Luna assured her friend. And you know Kane's cousin Marcus can't take his eyes off you. Marcus can keep his eyes to himself, Sarah muttered, but Luna caught the pleased flush in her cheeks. 5 minutes, called Thomas, one of Kane's groomsmen as he approached. The groom is getting restless. Luna nodded, taking a deep breath as she smoothed her hands over her wedding dress. She'd chosen something simple but elegant, a flowing gown of ivory silk that moved like water, with delicate beadwork that caught the fading sunlight. Her grandmother's emerald necklace rested at her throat, and Kane's engagement ring sparkled on her finger alongside the platinum wedding band that would soon have a matching partner. Luna. Her father's voice was soft as he joined their small group. Alpha Blackwood looked distinguished in his formal suit, but Luna could see the emotion he was trying to hide. You look radiant, sweetheart. Thank you, Dad. Luna kissed his cheek, breathing in his familiar scent of pine and strength. Are you ready to walk me down the aisle? I've been ready for months. The question is whether I'm ready to let you go. Luna felt her eyes mist. You're not letting me go. You're gaining a son. A good one, Alpha Blackwood agreed. Though I still maintain he's not nearly good enough for you. Nobody could be, Luna said with a grin. But Kane comes close. The sound of music drifted from the clearing, a string quartet playing the processional Luna had chosen. It was time. Sarah kissed her cheek and hurried toward the ceremony area, followed by the other members of the wedding party. Luna took her father's offered arm and felt a sense of perfect rightness settle over her. Ready? Alpha Blackwood asked. Ready. They emerged from the trees into the clearing, and Luna's breath caught at the sight that greeted her. Hundreds of pack members filled wooden chairs arranged in neat rows, their faces turned toward the altar that had been constructed at the far end of the space. Flowers decorated every surface, wildflowers native to their territory, symbolizing the natural beauty of the land they all called home. But Luna only had eyes for the man waiting for her at the altar. Kane stood tall and proud in a midnight blue suit that made his golden eyes glow like stars. His dark hair was perfectly styled, but Luna could see the slight tremor in his hands that betrayed his nerves. When their eyes met across the clearing, his face transformed with a smile so brilliant it took her breath away. Luna felt her father's arm tighten briefly on hers, a silent gesture of support and love, before he began walking her down the aisle. The assembled guests rose to their feet, but Luna barely noticed them. Her world had narrowed to Kane's face, to the love and wonder and promise she saw there. By the time they reached the altar, Luna's heart was hammering with joy rather than nerves. This was right. This was perfect. This was the future she'd been too afraid to dream of 6 months ago. "Who gives this woman to be married?" asked Elder Morrison, the pack's senior official who was performing the ceremony. "Her family does," Alpha Blackwood replied, his voice carrying across the clearing, with love and blessing and the hope that her happiness will be as enduring as the mountains that watch over us. He kissed Luna's forehead and placed her hand in Kane's, a symbolic passing that made Luna's throat tight with emotion. Kane's fingers closed around hers, warm and strong and familiar. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "So are you," Luna whispered back, drinking in every detail of his face. This was the man who'd waited 8 months for her to be ready, who'd protected her from danger and supported her dreams, who'd stood beside her as she found her own strength and power. Elder Morrison began the ceremony with words about love and partnership, about the sacred bond between mates that transcended the physical and touched the eternal. But Luna found herself thinking about their journey, the storm that had trapped them together, the crisis that had forged them into a team, the choice they'd made to build something beautiful from the ashes of fear. "The couple has chosen to write their own vows," Elder Morrison announced. Kane turned to face Luna fully, his hands warm as they held hers. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly across the clearing. "Luna, 6 months ago, I thought I knew what the mate bond meant. I thought it was about protection, about claiming, about finding the other half of my soul." Kane's golden eyes never left hers.
"But you taught me it was about so much more than that."
"You taught me that real love isn't about completing each other. It's about inspiring each other to be complete on our own." Luna felt tears prick her eyes as Kane continued. "You are the strongest person I know, the bravest leader I've ever followed, and the most incredible woman I've ever met. You didn't need me to save you. You saved yourself, and all of us, through your courage and wisdom." Kane's voice grew thick with emotion. "So, I don't promise to complete you, Luna. I promise to stand beside you as your equal, your partner, your mate in every sense of the word. I promise to support your dreams, challenge your ideas, and love you exactly as you are while encouraging you to become everything you're meant to be." Kane paused, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "I promise to face whatever storms come our way at your side, knowing that together we can weather anything. And I promise to love you, not just as my mate, but as my best friend, my partner in crime, and the woman who made me believe in fairy tales." Luna was crying openly now, not caring that hundreds of people were watching. "Your turn," Kane said softly, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Luna took a shaky breath, finding her voice. "Kane, when I first met you, I thought the mate bond was a trap. Something that would take away my freedom, my independence, my ability to choose my own path. She smiled through her tears. I was so wrong. The mate bond didn't trap me. It set me free. The clearing was absolutely silent, everyone straining to hear her words. You showed me that love isn't about losing yourself in another person. It's about finding the courage to be completely yourself because you know you're accepted and cherished exactly as you are. Luna's voice grew stronger. You didn't try to change me or cage me or make me smaller. You stood back and watched me grow into the woman I was meant to be, and you celebrated every step of that journey. Luna felt the truth of her words settling in her chest like a warm glow. So, I promise to be your partner in everything. Your equal in our relationship, your ally in our work, your companion in whatever adventures life brings us. I promise to challenge you when you need challenging, support you when you need support, and love you through all of it. Luna's smile was radiant. I promise to face every storm at your side, knowing that what we've built together is stronger than anything that could tear us apart. She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the clearing. And I promise to love you not just as my mate, but as the man who taught me that fairy tales aren't just stories. Sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, they're the life you choose to build. Elder Morrison's voice seemed to come from very far away as he guided them through the traditional exchange of rings. Luna barely registered the words as Kane slipped her wedding band onto her finger, his hands surprisingly steady despite the emotion in his eyes. By the power vested in me by the ancient laws and the bonds of pack and family, I now pronounce you mated for life. Kane, you may kiss your bride. Kane didn't need to be told twice. His hands framed Luna's face as he lowered his head and kissed her with all the love and promise and joy that had been building between them for months. The clearing erupted in cheers and applause, but Luna heard none of it. Her world had narrowed to Kane's lips on hers, to the feel of his arms around her, to the absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. When they finally broke apart, both of them were laughing through tears of pure happiness. "Hello, Mrs. Mitchell," Kane said against her forehead. "Hello, Mr. Mitchell," Luna replied, loving the sound of her new name. The reception was a joyous celebration that lasted well into the night. Luna danced with her father, with Kane's father who'd flown in from Montana, with pack members she'd known her entire life and new allies she'd gained through the Security Council. But her favorite dance was the last one. A slow song played as the moon rose over the mountains, with Kane's arms around her and their future stretching out before them like an endless, starlit road. "Any regrets?" Kane asked as they swayed together, the sounds of celebration fading around them. Luna looked up at her husband, her mate, her partner, her best friend, and felt her heart overflow with contentment. "Only one," she said seriously. Kane's expression grew concerned. "What's that?" Luna grinned. "That it took us 8 months to get here. We could have saved ourselves a lot of trouble if I'd been brave enough to stop running sooner." Kane's answering smile was brilliant.
I don't know about that.
"I think we got here exactly when we were supposed to. Besides," he added, spinning her gently under the starlight, "the best love stories are worth waiting for." "Is that what this is? A love story?" "The best one I know," Kane confirmed, pulling her close again. "And we're just getting started." As the night wound down and their guests began to depart, Luna and Kane stood hand in hand at the edge of the clearing, watching the last of the celebration fade into peaceful quiet. Tomorrow they would fly to Greece for their honeymoon, 2 weeks of sun and sand and the luxury of having nothing to worry about except each other. After that, they would return to their work with the Security Council, to the ongoing effort to build a safer world for their kind. But tonight, they were just Luna and Kane, newlyweds standing under a canopy of stars, grateful for the storm that had brought them together and the love that would carry them through whatever lay ahead. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Mitchell?" Kane asked, gesturing toward the cabin that had been decorated for their wedding night. Luna looked up at the mountains that had witnessed their first fight, their first kiss, their first declaration of love, and now their wedding. The peaks stood eternal and unchanging, but everything else had transformed. She was no longer the frightened girl who'd tried to run from her destiny. Kane was no longer the lonely enforcer waiting for a love that might never come.
They were partners now.
In love, in work, in life. United by bonds stronger than pack law, deeper than instinct, more enduring than time itself. "Lead the way," Luna said, squeezing Kane's hand as they walked toward their future together. Behind them, the clearing settled into peaceful quiet, but the love that had been celebrated there would echo through the mountains for generations to come. A love born in storm, forged in crisis, and sealed with the promise that some bonds are strong enough to weather any tempest. And in the distance, the mountains kept their eternal watch, guardians of a love story that had become legend.
The end.